Ladies and gentlemen, it is Election Day. Our fight against the libs has never mattered more. The time to join us in that fight has never been more imminent. Get 47% off your new Daily Wire Plus annual membership with code FIGHT. 47% off as we rally behind President Trump as the future 47th president. Go to dailywire.com today and stand with us as we fight the left and build America's future.
November 5th. The night America's fate is decided. As the final votes are counted and a nation waits for the outcome, join us to break down the live election results as only Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and Jeremy Boring can. With special guests appearing live in studio, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, Dennis Prager, and Spencer Klavan. Daily Wire Election Night 2024. Get real-time results and exclusive insights from the most trusted names in media. This is more than an election. It's history in the making. Join the Daily Wire as each vote is counted, each state called, and each race decided. Daily Wire Election Night 2024. Tonight at 6 Eastern, 5 Central.
In the final hours of the 2024 campaign, President Trump has picked up some major final endorsements. Joe Rogan, Megyn Kelly, Patrick Mahomes' mother, and more. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to this show. How you feeling, everybody? How you? Your nerves? I was tossing and turning a little bit last night. We will be checking in to see how U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn is feeling. Marsha is up for re-election this year in Tennessee and has been paying real close attention to this race. So we will get a little inside scoop. Before we get into any of that, though, you got to go to expressvpn.com/Knowles. Going online with that ExpressVPN is like putting all your passwords and credit card numbers on a huge billboard for the whole world to see. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, whether you are at a cafe, a hotel, an airport, your online data are completely exposed. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data, including your passwords, your bank logins, your credit card details. Scary part is, it doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Even a smart 12-year-old could do it with some cheap hardware. Your data are incredibly valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. That is why I use ExpressVPN. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between my devices and the internet. I travel a lot when I'm traveling all around, hotel, Wi-Fi, wherever. I can rely on ExpressVPN to give that crucial layer of security. The encryption is so powerful, it would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to break through. One button, click it, fire up that app. You're protected on all devices. Right now, take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday/Cyber Monday offer. It's like a month early. How are you getting that? You're getting a great deal right now, folks. ExpressVPN.com/Knowles. Get an extra 4 months with their 12-year plan, or you get an extra 6 months with their 24-month plan. That is ExpressVPN.com/Knowles. Knowles. Get an extra 4 or even 6 months of ExpressVPN for free. Lot of big information coming in, even in the last 24 hours. Joe Rogan has endorsed Trump. And this is a big deal. You might say, well, we already knew that Joe Rogan preferred Trump to Kamala or preferred Trump to Joe Biden. Sure, but Joe Rogan is the biggest podcaster in the entire world. He has played it a little bit safer in the past. He hasn't come out and actually endorsed President Trump. His interview with President Trump was the biggest interview probably ever conducted. And then he followed it up with the interview with J.D. Vance, which also did huge numbers. Well, he's just come out. He tweeted out, quote, "The great and powerful Elon Musk," and he's got this whole interview with Musk that came out. We'll get to a little bit of that too. "If it wasn't for him, we'd be effed. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you will hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump. Enjoy the podcast." This matters. I have friends, liberal friends, who listen to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's numbers are too big for only conservatives to be listening to him. In fact, I think Joe primarily speaks to people who are not conservative. They're lowercase c conservative, but they don't identify all the time as Republican or movement conservatives or anything like that, okay? It's a lot of people who are kind of in the middle, who think of themselves as independent, even many people who are on the center left. Joe is speaking to them, and within the last 24 hours, he says, vote for Trump. Okay, about half the country voted early. That means about half the country is voting today. And the biggest podcaster ever, and the current biggest podcaster in the world, says vote for Trump. That's a big deal. You know who else just came out and endorsed Trump? My friend, Megyn Kelly.
Can you believe this guy? Can you believe the energy and the stamina on this guy at his age? I'm ready to go to sleep over there. He's got another rally to go to till tonight. Let me tell you, first of all, one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, one of the many reasons I wanted to come here. When I launched my show 4 years ago, we had Mark Cuban on the program. You know, yeah. May have seen he was in the news this week. And he started going on about how bad America's race history was and how ashamed he was of America. And that's why he was at all these protests. And he felt it was really important to stand up and speak out about human rights violations. And then it got awkward when I asked him about all the money he was taking from China. And then he dropped a bunch of F-bombs, and I thought, I really enjoy this feeling of proving Mark Cuban wrong. And so here I am at a Trump rally, a strong, intelligent woman to prove Mark Cuban wrong again. I won't take up much of your time, but I do want to tell you the main reasons I am voting for Donald Trump.
Megyn's whole speech was great. We don't have time to get into the whole thing, but there she says the biggest reasons are immigration, that Kamala opened up the border. Trump is good on immigration and will protect the borders of the country. 2 is protecting women in sports, protecting women in prisons. You know, now the libs, specifically Kamala Harris actually pushed for this. The libs will allow men to be housed in women's prisons, and then women get raped. That's basically how it goes, because the men identify as women. So she says that transgender ideology, that's the second reason that I'm supporting Trump. He opposes it broadly, and Kamala supports it emphatically. And then the third one was protecting men. The second one's protecting women. The third reason is protecting men. That men are denigrated, men are smeared by Kamala and by the left as toxic. All masculinity in general is smeared as toxic. And that's not good. It's not good to constantly be insulting and bringing down our boys. And Megyn says Trump doesn't do that. Trump builds up the boys and he protects the girls, and that's a good thing. Now, a lot of people are going to be shocked by the Megyn Kelly endorsement because just 8 years ago, Megyn Kelly was moderating a debate when Trump was one of many in the Republican primary, and she hit him with the toughest question that he got probably in the entire campaign, and he gave the best answer that he gave in the entire campaign.
Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
Thank you.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been...
Masterful answer. I mean, you could tell this was a tough question from Megyn. She went in there guns blazing, and Trump totally dominated the question. Now, with that answer, he might as well have won the Republican primary in 2016. So they had a back and forth, and even after that debate, they were going back and forth at each other. So how is it that Megyn, who had this really tough relationship with Trump, she comes to endorse him at a Trump rally. I'll tell you exactly why. Because Megyn Kelly recognizes that politics is not about petty personal grievances. Politics is about the public. It's about the common good. It's ironic because the libs always tell us, think about the other people and think about the common good and think about everybody but yourself. And yet for them, politics is so petty. It's so personal. You think about Liz Cheney. Why is Liz Cheney campaigning for Kamala Harris? Is it because Liz Cheney is a principled conservative? No, she's sold out every conservative principle she ever even pretended to hold. But it's because Trump went after her personally and got her kicked out of Congress. So now she campaigns for Kamala Harris. It's true of so many people who campaign for Kamala Harris. In fact, the argument to support Kamala Harris, even on the left, is vote for Kamala Harris and she'll let you do those personal things that you really like doing. You're a man, you want to go into the women's bathroom, well, vote for Kamala Harris, and to hell with the common good, you can do whatever you want. You have this pet project, you have this pet issue, okay, well, you have this racial grievance group, okay, well, vote for Kamala Harris and forget about the common good. She'll just give you exactly what you want, to the disadvantage of other people. And what Megyn Kelly is saying is, no. Whatever personal issues I had with Trump in the past, doesn't matter. This is about more than personal stuff. This man is the man for the moment. This is the man for the common good. You got to vote for this guy because he's going to do good things for everybody. For all Americans, going to keep the foreigners out who are disrespecting our laws, and for women and for men and for everybody. It's about the common good. Now, one thing that is good for you is to get out of debt. You did not vote for the recession that we all feel looming, but you sure will pay for it at the pump, at the grocery store, with that growing stack of unpaid bills. Maybe you went into debt buying your fifth Camaro. Who knows? If you're one of millions of Americans being crushed by financial stress right now, the solution is donewithdebt.com. Unlike the other guys, Done With Debt has created new aggressive strategies that are designed to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy or loans. Done With Debt stands between you and bill collectors. They negotiate with your creditors to write off balances, cut interest, and stop penalties. They have a plan to put more money in your pocket every month until your debt is gone. Done With Debt is accepting new clients right now, but hurry, because some of their debt strategies are time sensitive. You do not want to miss out. Let Done With Debt hit the debt reset button for you. Make your money yours again. This is time sensitive. You need to visit donewithdebt.com or call 1-888-322-1054. It's easy to remember those last four digits. That is the year of the Great Schism. Chat with one of their debt relief strategists for free. Go to donewithdebt.com. That is donewithdebt.com. All right, last big endorsement I want to mention for President Trump. That would be Patrick Mahomes' mother. The mother of the Kansas City Chiefs football player just came out at a game that Taylor Swift attended and wore the MAGA hat.
Make America great again. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I love it. I absolutely love it. There are many more endorsements we could mention, but this is really great, especially because on the latter two, after Joe Rogan, you got Megyn Kelly, you got Patrick Mahomes' mother. I think Patrick Mahomes' wife had liked some pro-Trump posts a while ago. So Patrick Mahomes has not endorsed President Trump formally, but you get in a good sense. Okay, I think there are a lot of people who support this man who maybe are playing a little bit cooler and are feeling more and more emboldened, especially women. And this is that irony that Megyn Kelly was talking about. Megyn Kelly talking about Mark Cuban here, when Mark Cuban said that Trump never surrounds himself with strong, intelligent women. If you missed the video, listen to this absolute nonsense coming from the man who really, really wishes he could be Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
Now, what is so crazy about this line, there's plenty of ways to attack Trump, and Mark Cuban, I think, has a real grievance here because Mark Cuban could have been Donald Trump. At least he thought he could have been. He had a big show on TV, and he's the brash billionaire, and he has political ambitions, and he just hasn't succeeded in those political ambitions, and Trump has succeeded at the highest level. So I think he's got some petty personal grievances too. But this line, Trump doesn't surround himself with strong, intelligent women. To me, this is the craziest attack I've ever heard on Trump. If anything, you would say that Donald Trump surrounds himself with too many strong, intelligent women. When you think about the people around Donald Trump, who do you think of? You think of Kellyanne Conway, his campaign manager, the first woman ever successfully to run a presidential campaign in America. That was the Trump campaign. That was a Republican campaign. You think of, I don't know, Sarah Sanders, his very successful press secretary, who then became governor of Arkansas, is currently the governor of Arkansas. You think of Kayleigh McEnany, another very successful press secretary. You think of Ivanka. You think of his daughter, is a hugely successful woman, had her own clothing line, is very, very powerful. I don't know. You think of Hope Hicks. You think of Susie Wiles, is currently running her campaign. You think of the Trump lawyers. Jenna Ellis, Alina Habba. You say, I don't know. The list goes on and on and on. You want to knock Trump for anything. Knock him for the length of his tie. Knock him because you don't like his hairstyle. But to say he doesn't surround himself with strong and intelligent women, he is probably the politician who most prominently surrounds himself with strong and intelligent women for his entire career. And one hopes that on election day, those strong, intelligent women are going to see through the media BS. Now, one strong, intelligent woman who supports President Trump and who does a lot of great things in the United States Senate would be my Senator, Marsha Blackburn. Senator, thank you for coming on the show.
I'm delighted to join you. Thank you so much for having me on this election day. And it is a pivotal election day. I hope everybody realizes that Kamala broke it, Trump can fix it, and they get to the polls and cast that vote.
Well, I certainly hope so. I just voted for you a few days ago, and I don't think you really needed my vote in the sense that you were leading your opponent by like 30 points. But you always say, yes, you need every single vote, but you are going to win. Everyone needs to go out there and vote for Marsha, but you are going to win. Tennessee remains a very solid state. I couldn't even tell you the name of your opponent off the top of my head. There are many, many closer races in the swing states especially, and we need to go out there because there's a lot of down ballot that people need to vote for. But, Senator, I had trouble sleeping last night. I'll tell you, I am not easily rattled, okay? I take things as they come, and I actually do feel confident about this election, but I did not sleep very well because I know the stakes are so high, not just at the presidential level, but for the U.S. Senate, for the House races. This feels like a more important election than other elections in my lifetime. How do you feel about it, and what are your predictions?
I feel really, really good. And I think President Trump has a history of getting more votes than where he polls. So looking at the polling, I think it indicates that we're going to see him on a solid footing coming through the Midwest. And yes, I do think before midnight he hits that 270 electoral votes. When you look at the states where we have Senate races that we're going to win: West Virginia, Ohio, Montana, and the tied up races in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, and a close race down in New Mexico with Nella Domenici. You know, Michael, and Trump is doing well in all of those. He is tied up. Those races are tied up. He may be a point or a half point ahead, but that bodes very well for President Trump and those down ballot races. And of course, we were pleased with the totals coming from the early vote, the drop off in requests for mail-in ballots, the increase in the number of Republicans that have voted early. All of that bodes very well for us. And I think you're going to end up seeing President Trump elected and Republicans take the Senate. And we're also hopeful that they can keep the House.
You just said something that makes me personally very hopeful. One, because I'm scheduled to be on air until like 2 a.m. or something tonight. But two, because I know that the longer the count drags out, the more opportunity for shenanigans. You just said you think that President Trump will get to 270 tonight.
I think we could see by midnight, see him reach that 270. He's doing very well in Georgia, in North Carolina. He's up in Pennsylvania. He's up a little bit in Michigan and Wisconsin. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. You know, he has said something many times, let's make it too big to rig. And I think you might end up seeing that tonight.
Too big to rig is a beautiful statement. I agree. I feel good about the early voting numbers. So you say we're going to take the Senate. Do you have any guess on how many seats? Is it 52? Is it 53?
I think it'll be 52 or 53. It could be, if it's a very good night, it could be 54.
Wow. And in terms of the House, you think that we're going to hold it? Do you have any guess? Is it going to be one person either way? Or
I have no insight into the House races. I'm just very hopeful that they're going to be able to keep the House.
This is good news. Senator, you've helped to assuage some of my nerves a little bit going into the day. And of course, this is very important. Even in a red state like Tennessee, first of all, you got to go out there and vote. Also because hoping President Trump wins the Electoral College, you know the Democrats are going to try to whine about anything that they possibly can. So it would be good if President Trump could win the popular vote. Every vote counts. And even in a race where I am quite confident that Senator Blackburn is going to be reelected happily, go out there, make those margins really, really big. Go out there and vote for down ballot. If you live in Nashville like I do, go vote against, tax increases and things like that. there are all sorts of issues on the ballot. So make sure that you go out there and make your voice heard. Senator.
I would say this. People that are watching your show, for your kids and your grandkids, go vote today. Because this country is going to be on a big government control track, or it's going to be on a personal freedom track after this election today. So don't miss out to make your voice heard.
Don't miss out, because I don't want to hear any complaining after the fact. Things don't go the way you want them to go. I don't want to hear complaining if you're not actually getting in the game, playing by the rules that we have to play by, and doing everything you can to push us over the finish line in this very high stakes election. Senator, I know it's a very busy day for you, so appreciate your taking the time to come on. And I look forward to seeing you after you have been happily reelected later on tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Now, my favorite time of year is almost here. I know what are you're thinking? Is it Thanksgiving? Is it Christmas? Is it the inauguration parties? It's Advent, of course. It's one of my favorite times of the year. Following Advent, we have Christmas, the birth of our Lord. You know what I love about Christmas? It's the perfect opportunity to tell the people in your life how much you love them. And nothing says I love you quite like Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth sheets are absolutely fabulous. They make incredible quality. It's made from viscose from bamboo. Allows you to sleep several degrees cooler, which means no more midnight thermostat battles. Even better, these sheets come with a 10-year guarantee. I have one complaint about Cozy Earth. You want to know, Mike? It's not Cozy Earth's fault. I have one complaint about Cozy Earth, which is that Elisa, sweet little Elisa, loves the Cozy Earth sheets that I brought home so much that she ordered them to give as a gift, as a wedding present to someone, and she didn't use my promo code. And that really, really bugs me, okay? We didn't even get the credit for spreading the love of Cozy Earth this holiday season. Wrap your loved ones in luxury and sanity. Cozy Earth. Visit cozyearth.com/Knowles, KNWLES. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, for an exclusive 40% off. Cozyearth.com/Knowles, code Knowles for 40% off. When you get that post-purchase survey, let them know you heard about it on The Michael Knowles Show. So we talked about all of the strong, intelligent women who support President Trump. Now I'd like to turn to a different kind of woman, the kind of woman who supports Kamala. Whoopi Goldberg and the ladies on The View just interviewed Liz Cheney, a former Republican who's now stumping for Kamala. And Whoopi she expressed a desire for what would happen in a Kamala administration that I think if you told Democrats that Whoopi Goldberg would be saying this to Liz Cheney, if you told them this 20 years ago, their heads would spin off of their heads. Whoopi Goldberg, the ladies on The View, said that they want to see Liz Cheney be the director of the CIA.
So I have a question. Are you also a lawyer?
Yeah. I am.
So you could conceivably be a great AG if this was because and I say this because your moral core is magnificent.
Wow.
And I know you probably don't want it, you don't want to think about it, but I just feel like I would feel a lot better with you leading the FBI, the CIA, the NBC, the LMNT, everybody. That's just me. So I'm just saying, should it be floated? Please think about it.
And under the radar.
We have to get Vice President Harris elected.
I'm being.
You're putting it out there in the universe.
I'm putting it in the universe.
Manifest.
Because that's how we do things.
You've woken up from a coma. You've been in a coma since, say, 2006. You ask, what's been going on in politics? And you say, the host of The Apprentice has been the president, and he's running for president again. He was almost murdered by his political opponents. Turns out he was actually a really good president. He's probably the best president of our lifetime. The Cheney family is campaigning for the most liberal leftist Democrat ever to run for president. And the women of The View are campaigning for the daughter of Dick Cheney to be the head of the CIA. Did I miss anything? Oh, you want to go back into your coma now? Okay, that's fine. Methinks the realignment is real. Methinks that the political realignment that we've heard so much about over the past 4 to 8 years is real. Whoopi Goldberg telling Liz Cheney, you have such a strong moral core, a woman who has never seen a country in the Middle East she did not want to bomb, the daughter of the man that Democrats called Darth Vader for at least a decade, more than a decade, really. You have such a strong moral core. Why? She has such a strong moral core because she has betrayed every principle she's ever pretended to hold, other than desiring to invade other countries. Other than that, though, she's betrayed every principle she's ever pretended to hold, and betrayed the loyalty and trust of her fellow Republicans who have helped her in her political career. And now the ladies of The View want Cheney to run the CIA. That's a realignment, folks. When the head of the Teamsters doesn't endorse the Democrat, that's a political realignment. When Joe Rogan, who is the most mainstream podcaster, endorses Trump, the man that we were told is the most toxic Republican, maybe you can endorse a Bush or something, but you can't endorse a Trump. That's a realignment. I guess this is why I'm so happy about the official Rogan endorsement, is because Rogan is signaling, hey, it's okay to endorse Trump. Rogan is the emblem of the political middle. Rogan is the avatar of the average voter, the median voter. And Rogan is saying, I'm with Trump. It's that meme that Elon posted on X that many people have posted recently, which is you got someone standing on the left, the political left, and there's a tug of war between the left and the right. And the person on the left has been pulled over to the right because the left has gone so far to the left. And now he didn't really move. It's that the center of gravity moved. And he said, I guess I'm on the right now. I was on the left, but I guess I'm on the right now because of how much how far to the extremes the left has gone. That's it. Rogan hasn't really changed. Elon Musk hasn't really changed. Bobby Kennedy hasn't really changed. In a way, it's kind of sad that all of these guys are now considered on the right. It can be helpful to us now, and we're going to hopefully win this election. But it just shows you how much ground the left has taken. And this realignment leads to all sorts of crazy things, like the women of The View endorsing a Cheney for the head of CIA. Now, what would happen if, I hate to even express this thought, but what would happen if Kamala got elected? Beyond the ideological battles, there's just a question. Kamala Harris is, let's say she's the president. She's sitting across from Vladimir Putin. She's sitting negotiating with Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. She's sitting negotiating with Xi Jinping. Beyond ideology, there is a basic level of intelligence and education and competence that is required to do that job. Does Kamala possess it? Well, I'll give you a little vignette. You tell me what you think. This just leaked to the New York Times. Apparently, Kamala Harris did a podcast last summer with a guy named Kareem Rama. He has a TikTok show and an Instagram show called Subway Takes. This interview never aired. It's just being leaked now to the New York Times and being reported elsewhere. Over the summer, especially when the Gaza war was a big, hot political issue, this interviewer, Rama asked Kamala what what she thought about Gaza. He said this, according to the Times. There's something going on in the world that 100% of Muslims care about. She said she didn't want to talk about Gaza. She said she wanted to talk about light, funny little topics like you'd ordinarily see on TikTok or Instagram. So when her team was negotiating this interview, she said, no, I don't want to talk about Gaza. I want to talk about fun little stuff like whether people should take their shoes off on airplanes. Tee-hee-hee, I'm so fun. I'm so relatable. So that was what they agreed to talk about. Then, when Kamala sat down for this interview, she says, no, I'm not going to talk about anything real. I'm not going to talk about Gaza. And I'm not even going to talk about the stupid triviality that we agreed to talk about, whether or not it's acceptable to take one's shoes off on an airplane. She said she wanted to give her hot take that bacon is a spice. To the Muslim interviewer, I don't know how worldly you are, familiar with world religions. Muslims generally frown upon bacon. It is haram. She says, okay, of all the things I can talk about to distract from the real issue that I don't want to talk about, namely the war in Gaza, I'm going to bring up inadvertently maybe the most offensive thing I could talk about with this guy. So she says, ha ha ha. There's no video, unfortunately. The interview never aired. But I'm just imagining from what I've read of this transcript. She says, she goes, ha ha ha, you know, I think bacon is a spice. Ha 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 ha. And she does a little cackle. And Rama reportedly responds, I don't know. I don't know. You've lost me. I'm not familiar with bacon. And then she keeps going. She doesn't get it. She doesn't get that bacon is maybe not a great area of common ground with the Muslim interviewer. She goes, think about it. It's pure flavor. And this guy's just like, can we talk about something else? This interview was so bad it never aired. The guy's sitting down with the presidential candidate, the nominee of the Democrat Party, she eventually came to be. And this guy says, no, I'm not going to air it. That's how bad this is. Then when Rama asked, he paused the interview. He asked Kamala Harris, can we just get back to some other topic? She decided she wanted to talk about how much she likes anchovies on pizza. And according to the Times in this unpublished video that they've seen, Rama says, well, I'm 100% unsure on both of those. This woman would not be able to negotiate the Abraham Accords. I'm pretty confident. I'm not sure this woman would be able to negotiate a Diet Coke at McDonald's. This woman is not fit to be president. She does not possess the rational faculties required, the judgment, the prudence, just any knowledge of anything, basically, to be president. That's something that really worries me about this election. Her policies would be awful. She would want to kill all the babies and trans all the kids. That's bad. I know that's bad. All of the ideological aspects but she also just is not competent and she is not knowledgeable about anything. And I'm not sure she possesses the requisite intelligence even to become knowledgeable were she so determined. If this woman is elected, forget about the fact that she's a woman and that presents in itself challenges when you're dealing with guys like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. It just does. A feminist might say that's not fair, but it just does present those problems. But it'd be one thing if she were the Iron Lady. It'd be one thing if she were Margaret Thatcher. She's not. She's Kamala Harris. And our enemies will take the opportunity to eat us for lunch if this woman becomes the president. Now, back to Elon on Joe Rogan before we get out of here. Elon does Joe Rogan's show. He did not smoke a big spliff this time, as he did, I believe, the last time he was on Joe Rogan's show. But he also expressed some worries about this election that are unique, say, in this election compared to all of the other elections in his lifetime. Namely, Elon fears that if Trump does not win this election, we might not have any more elections.
Well, I'll say it again, man. I think this is the last election. If Trump doesn't win, this is the last election.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think people, and a lot of people are waking up and realize that have been lifelong Democrats. Guys like Bill Ackman, guys like Chamath.
Yeah, exactly.
Tulsi Gabbard switched over to the Republicans. Yep. Like, there's a lot of people who their whole life they've been left-wing and they realize, like, I can't do this anymore.
You and I used to be Democrats.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's nuts, man. And, I think the things we want are just pretty basic. It's like we want individual liberties, and we want opportunity. We want America to remain the land of freedom and opportunity. So we maximize people's personal freedom. The government can't barge into your house and kill your pet. That's up. And that you succeed as a function of your hard work and talent, not anything else, not race, religion.
Okay, this is a fair enough point, I think. Elon is expressing, I think, quite clearly that he's a liberal. He is a liberal. Some of us are conservatives, but he's a liberal. He says, I want to maximize individual autonomy. I didn't leave my party. My party left me. Joe Rogan's saying the same thing. Tulsi Gabbard is saying much the same thing. Bobby Kennedy is saying much the same thing. Something has shifted. And then the point that Elon is making here, I think, is really important. Does he literally mean there won't be election day in 4 years? I don't think that's what he means literally. He's saying that the left's program, especially of open borders and just declaring foreigners citizens even against the law, that practically speaking, that means that Americans will not have control over their government anymore. They won't, for all intents and purposes, really be able to elect their leaders anymore if the leaders can just choose to make however many millions of people they want into American citizens. Today is the day. Today, America decides its future, and our fight against the libs has never mattered more, as I may have mentioned at the top of the show. We need you on the front lines with us. So right now, get 47% off your new Daily Wire Plus annual membership with code FIGHT at dailywire.com/subscribe. We are challenging the left's narrative, mainstream media's distortions, and the deceptive agenda that undermines your voice. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code FIGHT for 47% off your new Daily Wire Plus membership. Then be sure to join us live tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern on Daily Wire Plus for our exclusive election coverage with special guests, including Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, Dennis Prager, Spencer Klavan, and more. Anything could happen. We are here to cover every moment as it unfolds. Daily Wire's Election Night 2024. Watch live starting at 6 p.m. Eastern on Daily Wire Plus. My favorite comment yesterday is from Case Wojo 6186. Who said, my life was a lot better under Trump. Quite frankly, I took it for granted. I did not know how bad things would get under Biden, and I'm positive will get even worse under communist Kamala. Yeah, I think that's true. The presidency does not determine every facet of your life. It's not the most important thing in your life. The most important thing in your life is probably your relationship with God, first and foremost, and followed by your relationship with your family and your local community. I mean, these things are immediately more important. Your job, what you're doing, even your leisure activities. But these presidential elections are so important because they form the background of so much of that activity. When goods and services cost 30% more because the wrong guy became president 3.5 years ago, that's a problem. That's going to affect how you can send your kids to school. That's going to affect what kind of food you can buy for your family, okay? When America is dragged into wars because instead of having the good foreign policy president with the most successful foreign policy in our lifetime, President Trump, you have some other guy or some other woman. And all of a sudden, America is bleeding money, bleeding blood through our service members. The world is on the move. There's war breaking out. That affects you. That affects the society. That affects the background in which all those other activities take place. And a lot of people take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. Now, back to Elon Musk. Elon expressed a view on the Rogan show that is not unique to him. Bill Maher recently expressed the same view. Elon said to Joe, one of the things that drives him craziest about what the Democrats are doing right now is they are knowingly peddling hoaxes about Trump, including in the last few days of the campaign.
When you have deliberate, concerted, repeated pushing of hoaxes, you're like, wait a second, like, come on, man, this is too far.
And you're supposed to be the good guys.
You're supposed to, and you claim to be the good guys? I'm like, exactly.
You're supposed to be the progressives.
Yes, the Dems are like, oh, we're the good guys. We're the honest people. No, hang on. You can't claim to be the good guys. You can't claim to be the honest people if you're deliberately pushing hoaxes that have been debunked thoroughly.
Yeah. Well,
we're like even Snopes, which is a liberal thing, says it's bogus.
Yeah.
Like the Fine People hoax.
Obama just said that on stage.
Obama just said that. I was like, what the flying?
He doesn't give a. They're just
That's a flat out lie.
Flat out lie.
Flat out
How
lie.
about the?
Notice the distinction here. Elon's talking about deliberate hoaxes. He's not saying when you just say things that aren't true. When your ignorant lesbian leftist niece from Swarthmore, who doesn't know anything, shows up to Thanksgiving and starts mouthing off about how Trump called Nazis fine people, it's annoying, and you should correct her if you can in a gentle, loving way. But she doesn't know. She's just ignorant. She's just saying something that isn't true because she believes media propaganda. Not so when, as Elon and Joe are referencing here, Barack Obama shows up on the campaign trail a few days ago. Barack Obama, say what you will about him, he's an intelligent guy. He's a pretty well-read guy. He knows that it has been debunked time and time again, even by liberal outlets. Trump did not call Nazis fine people at Charlottesville. They've seen the tape. They've read the transcript. They know that isn't true. But Barack Obama lies anyway.
Maybe you're Muslim American or Jewish American, and you are heartbroken and furious about the ongoing bloodshed in the Middle East and worried about the rise of anti-Semitism. Why would you place your faith in somebody who instituted a so-called Muslim ban, who sat down for pleasantries with Holocaust deniers, who said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally?
Why would you do that? He sat down. I love how Barack Obama a week ago said, how do we get so divided in this country? How do we get so divided? Trump says Nazis are fine people. He did it. He totally did. Don't look at the tape, though. Don't Google it. Don't read any. Just believe me. He called Nazis fine people. And the reason that Elon and Joe are objecting to that in particular, so many lies, but that one in particular it is insulting. It is insulting to our intelligence. Barack Obama is expressing a disrespect for the intelligence of his audience when he lies to them deliberately. And through that disrespect, he is expressing a contempt of the American people. And this should be no surprise. Barack Obama, when he ran for president, he said he wanted to fundamentally transform America, which is tantamount to saying that he hates America as it is, or as it was at that time. Because you don't want to fundamentally transform things that you love. So he was expressing a contempt for the American people and for the United States. And he was cheered on in that contempt by many people in America. I think that's what's so offensive to people about this, about the lies. It's not just the mendacity. It's not just the attempt to pull one over and get a little dirty trick in before the election. It expresses a deeper disrespect and contempt for the audience, for the American people. And Elon and Joe are there and they say, I'm out. This is just too much for me. I guess I'm on the other side now. It's not just Joe Rogan. It's not just Elon Musk. Bill Maher made the same point about the hoaxes.
What do you make of the statement? I woke up today to the headline that Trump had called for a firing squad for Liz Cheney. And this is what I really don't like about the media. No, he didn't. He did not. You don't have to move me to not like Donald Trump.
He says
more
so
than
many things.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't, he says. He goes on to say, just to be clear, this is exactly what hippies always said. This is exactly what peaceniks always said. This is Fortunate Son, the song. It's like, you know what? It's very easy to sit in your building and send young men to die, apropos of Ukraine. But I don't know. The war does not look like it's going in the right direction. Just don't lie to me. I don't like Donald Trump. Don't lie to me and tell me he wants her in front of a firing squad. He's saying, don't lie to me. I already don't like that. The media are making Bill Maher like Trump more because it's offensive. And it's very telling that Trump's attacks on his rivals are true statements that they want to cover up. When Trump says Kamala wants to end fracking, she said that. We have videotape of her saying that. She said it on network television. When Trump says Kamala supports an open border. She was the border czar under Biden, and she left the border open. That's just, you can check that. When Trump says she wants to go soft on crime, she did campaign on going soft on crime. She's held both sides of every single issue, but he's just pointing out things that she has said and that she has done. When the libs want to attack Trump, Harris and Biden and Obama, they make things up. He called Nazis fine people at Charlottesville. If they have to make things up, what that signals to me is, beyond the disrespect for the voters from the Democrats, what that signals to me is they don't have anything real to hit him on. Even after all this time, even after a full term, even after then another presidential term campaigning out of office, even after all these decades in public life, they actually don't have all that much on Trump. So they have to rig it a little bit. And they did. There was one last little cheat they tried to get through. SNL, which had a funny bit on Tim Kaine. I played it on the show yesterday. SNL snuck in Kamala Harris for one last appearance before the election.
See you, Kamala. It is nice to see you, Kamala. And I'm just here to remind you, you got this. Because you can do something your opponent cannot do. You can open doors. I see what you did there, like to a garbage truck, right? I don't really laugh like that, do I? A little bit. Now, Kamala, take my Pamela. The American people want to stop the chaos and end the drama with a cool new stepmamala. Kick back in our pajamas and watch a rom Kamala. Like Legally Blondula. And start decorating for Christmas. Fa la 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 la. Because what do we always say? Keep Kamala and carry on a la.
Excuse me. I have to take a little break here for a second. That was very cringe-inducing and illegal, by the way. That violates the FCC rule for equal time because NBC is not a podcast. It's not even cable. It's a network TV show. And so they really have to offer equal time to the other candidate. And they're not going to do that, and they'll probably pay a fine. All of which is to say, SNL knew what it was doing here. NBC knew what it was doing. It broke the rules, and it said, we won't have to deal with the consequences. At least we won't have to deal with the consequences until after it matters, until after Election Day. There's going to be a lot of that today. There are going to be a lot of there's shenanigans in every single election. There are attempts to cheat in every single election. And in my experience, it's been disproportionately from the Democrats, but it's been going on for a very long time. There are going to be so many attempts to skew things as the day drags on. The RNC, the Trump team says they have very good lawyers. They're watching this, poll watchers, people ready to make challenges if untoward actions are taking place. But this is going to be white knuckle intense all the way until the end, whenever the end is. And we'll be here. So I think I'll be on air for about 37 hours today and then in perpetuity until the election results come in. So this marks the end of the formal show, but we are going to stay live until Mr. Shapiro is on very shortly. And I'll be joined by some friends of mine. So I'll see you over there. Before we get to some friends of mine, I want to take questions from the Chem Lulachem, the Daily Wire Plus members. I'm not taking questions. I love you all on YouTube and X and everything. You're all great, but no hoi polloi questions right now. This is from the Chem Lulachem. If you want to get your questions in, get your comments in, then you must join Daily Wire Plus. Don't cut Ben off today, says Tyler H. I fully intend to do that. I can't wait to cut Ben off on his show and then all throughout the election night coverage. Wow, that's a long day, says Ellie. It's true. Some are suggesting that 37 out of 24 hours is violating some kind of cosmic laws, but it will happen. We live in a strange age where the Cheneys are campaigning for the Democrat and Trump is the greatest president of the century. So, look, we live in unusual times. I don't want to stay up until 3 a.m., lol, says Aitlian. Well, too bad, because you're going to. Catherine, I hope we find out tonight. I know, me too. Look, man, we all hope that we find out tonight, but I really hope we find out tonight, because I will not sleep for days if we don't find out. However, I have 3 kids under 4. So actually, I'm more likely to sleep even just being on air at the Daily Wire in perpetuity than I would if I went home and lied in my bed. What do I make for breakfast, says HSF Grazia. Make it a small breakfast. A little fasting is not a bad idea. I'm not calling you fat. I'm saying it's a good spiritual discipline, especially on election day. Dude, they had to give Trump a minute ad on SNL. Yeah, they should. They should, but they'll just pay a fine or something. They won't. They'll deal with it after the election. Okay. This is too much. I'm getting a funnel of intelligence from the crème de la crème. So I want to narrow all of that. I want to keep all of the intelligence, but I want just one source of it, and that will be my friend, Dr. Spencer Klavan. Dr. Klavan, thank you for taking time out of your busy election day.
It's a true pleasure, or I would have said that until you made me listen to that SNL sketch. However long we collectively have to be on the air today, it can't be longer than that sketch was. It kept happening.
Yes.
It never stopped.
It feels like it's happening still, actually, in the recesses
It's still
of my
going
mind.
on.
Yes, I know.
That's right.
Now, Spencer, well, many of us are focused on comparisons between this election and, say, 2016 or 2020 or even 2004. You have a little bit of a broader scope of things. Like you don't read necessarily the columns of I don't know, Jonah Goldberg or Ross Douthat so much as you read the columns of like Polybius, or Machiavelli or Seneca. I don't know. So given your classicist background, I'm curious your thoughts on what Elon said. Elon said, if we lose this election, this is going to be the last election, which has all sorts of implications to it. Literal, there's subtext to that, all sorts of. So what's your take? You put the 2024 American election in the scope of all the history of all polities. What are we looking at?
Well, on the one hand, ever since I've been conscious, sentient, people have been saying that whatever election is going on is the most important election ever. And if this bad guy gets into office, we're completely hosed. We're toast. On the other hand, this is a very important election. And if this Kamala person gets into office, we are hosed, man. Yeah. I wouldn't be so bold as to make a prediction. I mean, maybe, Musk's the richest man in the world. Maybe he knows something I don't. I wouldn't. I'm part of my experience of history and reading the annals of deep time has convinced me never to make predictions, because one thing I think your boy Machiavelli would suggest is that human affairs aren't subject to the kind of ironclad mathematical scientific rules that we might wish to use to make those sorts of predictions. But the Greeks before Machiavelli did have this idea about regimes, that even if things can't be predicted exactly, you can't do your Nostradamus chart and point with your finger exactly to when the republic's going to fall. You can discern patterns. You can see certain trends that tend to repeat themselves. And the more history you read, the more you start to see these patterns. And for Polybius, whom you mentioned, the pattern was a cycle. We would run through these different kinds of government. And, you might start with a king, but then the king would become a tyrant. And so the nobles would rise up and form an aristocracy. And then they would kind of decay into this oligarchy, and the people would rise up. You get a democracy. Democracy devolves into mob rule, and some strong man takes over. This is called the cycle of regimes. And our republic, the American republic, is designed as a kind of break. It's a way out of, an exit ramp from that cycle, so that we can actually have these different kinds of power balancing against one another. This is the kind of thing we all learned in civics class, checks and balances. And so what I would say is that we are right now undergoing one of the biggest stress tests to that system I think we've ever seen. We've had a particularly violent one in the Civil War, and people don't realize how miraculous it is that we came out of that conflict with our regime intact, that we still had a republic before and after we fought a war internally. That's an incredible accomplishment on the part of the American system. Now we have something that Machiavelli wrote a lot about, which is a crisis of confidence in the elites. And when you talk about these patterns and the kinds of things that bring regimes down, I think that our elites have been toying with napalm. I mean, to say that they've been playing with fire would be to understate it. You know, it's like the fact that we're still talking now about having a relatively free and fair election, that we're hopeful we will know the outcome tonight or soon, is kind of a miracle. I know that things have seemed so awful, but relative to the possibilities, if you think about, you know, what happened to Athens after the Peloponnesian War, or if you think about the way that Rome faced the similar problems to us at the end of its republic and metamorphosed into an empire, into a totally new kind of regime, we're toying with a lot of those same forces, and our elites have been throwing fuel on that fire. But we have two things that the Romans didn't have. We have this new world that was opened up by our great Puritan forefathers, you know, long may their memory reign. And we have the Lord Jesus Christ. We have God Almighty. And these are two major transformations from the world of pagan Rome. And they shaped every step of the founding of our country. People try to pretend that this was just an Enlightenment sort of rationalist project we gave up on believing in God as part of government. That's all hogwash. It's all hooey. The founders, to a man, believed that by founding this republic, they were shaping politics in the most godly way possible. And that did include freedom of religion, but that's because God is the God of freedom. That, you know, God has set us free for freedom, and that's part of his intention for us. He alone can bring us through what's about to happen. You know, I'm not going to say that if Kamala comes in, we'll never have another shot at this ever. But we are, I think right now, what we're just trying to decide is whether an American revival will sweep through the government or have to fight against the government. And I do not mean with arms. I don't mean like we're, you know, destined for civil war, but I do mean that patriots who love this country, of which there are many, are going to either be working through their federal government under a Trump administration, or they're going to be harassed and hobbled and sought out and attacked by their federal government, as they have been over the past 4 years. So, you know, we're trying to do something that's never been done. We're trying to get through a regime crisis without a transformation of our regime. If anybody's got a shot at it, we have. But it's an important election.
My favorite part about your answer there is that you referred to the Pilgrims of the Mayflower, which reminds me of my favorite cigar company, Mayflower Cigars. But my second favorite point is this question of whether or not we will survive with our regime intact. Because I've sometimes, this is my deeper reading of what Elon has to say, is not that there won't be election day 4 years from now. I bet there will be election day. You know, Saddam Hussein had election day too. But it's the question of whether or not, when the Democrats legalize or make citizens of 11 million people, whether our vote really matters, whether it carries the significance that it presently does. And obviously it would not in that case if there were to be mass amnesty. It may not already, given all of the mass migration of the past 60 years, the largest movement of people anywhere in recorded history. And so that is what got me thinking about Polybius is, it seems to me, all of the political wins are in our favor right now. The economy is trash under Biden and Harris. The foreign policy has gone completely to hell in a handbasket after Trump brought peace to the Middle East, for goodness sakes. The immigration crisis is driving people crazy. You know, the domestic social issues, notably transing the kids, is really arousing passions in a lot of people, even on the center left. So it's all bad for the country, but it's good for Republicans. Everything is working in our favor right now. Kamala Harris is totally unpopular. She's never won a single vote in a primary when she ran for president. They'd swapped out their nominee last minute. You know, I'm just saying every single thing. I could be here for 2 hours talking about all of the advantages that we have in this election, which then makes me think, if we cannot win in these circumstances, even President Trump, some people don't like President Trump, and he has more sympathy than he's ever had because they almost blew his head off twice. If we can't win in these circumstances, can we just not win Meaning if we can't win in 2024, is it possible the referendum is not on Trump or Kamala, but it's just a referendum on the kind of regime that we think we live in?
I think that's extremely well put. One thing that will really, as they say, blackpill me about a Kamala Harris victory is that she really does represent the avatar of our feckless elites. She has no accomplishments. She's never won a single primary election. She is effectively a hollow human shape in which is poured the pure desire for power for its own sake. And that is a perfect embodiment of the larger network of people who don't care about this country, don't want us to succeed, don't want average Americans to have a country that serves them, but are rather in hock to their own abstruse theories and their own political power. And she is basically just an empty vessel for that machine. And so it's in some ways extraordinarily fitting that she's the person that Donald Trump is up against. During the primaries for this election, I used to think that the face-off we really deserved was Ron DeSantis versus Governor Gavin Newsom of California. I thought these two governors represent the two red and blue state approaches that have had exactly the wages you would expect them to have. Florida is thriving. It's open. It's free. It's like full of kind of in fact, a multicultural but nevertheless Americanist verve. California is a giant sinkhole on the shore of the country. You and I both fled it. We're both California refugees. We know whereof we speak. And I thought what we really need is for these two guys to represent these two approaches to American government. And so when it turned out to be Trump Biden and then Trump Kamala, at first I thought, we've really kind of gotten stuck here in a sort of like we're reliving our traumas or something from the past era. I don't think that anymore. I actually think this is the exact election we deserve. It's not the election I wish we had. It's not the candidates I wish we were watching face off against each other. But in fact, it does plausibly represent the conflict at the heart of the country right now. On the one hand, you have a kind of pandering, racist, tribalist, classist, anti-meritocratic regime whose representatives are effectively faceless, who can be swapped out literally at will, ad libitum. They can just drop somebody else into that empty spot. And on the other hand, you have this messy, scrappy, relentless, uncouth, and utterly lovable rascal, right? This total King David style kind of, bulldozer.
Literally dancing before the Lord. Literally with this thing and
Right. And as just every bit as imperfect a vessel as David was, backed by all of the smartest people in the country, all the most interesting thinkers in the country, and an actual representative sample of the populace, the people of the country. Trump has an actual Republican coalition, not in the capital R sense of this is the Republican candidate, but in the small R sense that he represents all three major class interests within a republic. He has the genuine elite are behind him in the person of J.D. Vance, for instance, actual smart people with or without credentials. The sort of power brokers of the country who are interested in making genuine moves in the electorate, which is, or rather in the executive branch. Mm-hmm. And then a sampling of the public that genuinely represents, I think, the American spirit. And we're actually sort of seeing which of those two things, if our system is working, it's obvious which of those two things should succeed. It's the representative sample of the public will. If it's not, then we can have elections or not have elections. It really doesn't matter.
So then I want to get to your prediction, because your point on the diversity, the proper variety, Republican diversity of the Trump coalition is impressive. I was at the MSG rally in New York, and a black guy pointed out to me, he said, this is the most diverse movement in American politics. And he was speaking not of your class distinction, which I think is an important one, also maybe a more important one, but also he just pointed out, there was a lady in a hijab and a dude waving an Israel flag. like 40 feet away from each other. And they both had good reason to support Trump, actually, to say nothing of all the races and sexes and, all the rest of it. That's there. You don't see that kind of vibrancy on Kamala's team. But then, okay, it all sounds good. It all sounds really good, Dr. Klavan. In theory, I agree with you on what the election represents, what the stakes are. I agree with you. This is the fight that we should be having. This is the appropriate fight for this moment. Are we going to win?
Neither the pollsters, nor the pundits, nor perhaps even the angels in heaven, but only God the Father knows what's. I genuinely believe. I've been reading the polls. I've been watching as each new result comes in from early voting. I've been scrutinizing the tea leaves with the best of them. And all I can conclude is that nobody knows a thing. Nobody knows anything. It seems like all our categories are completely exploded. So having said that and throwing caution to the winds, I'm very hopeful. I'm an optimist about this election. What you have said about the a word that was really misused in this election, the joy, the energy, the vibrancy, right? Which was astroturfed into the Kamala Harris presidency when she first, or rather candidacy when she first emerged, but was really only there as an attempt to steal something that is one of Trump's actual best qualities. That plus the genuine, guys like us who are sort of really invested in our philosophy and our principles, we often get mad at Trump about this. And it's funny because people will come up to me and they'll say, like, how can you support Donald Trump, this abortion-hating, gay banning villain? And I'll say to these people, I know a lot of people who wish that were an accurate depiction of Donald Trump. You don't understand that the Republican, hard right now is very upset with Trump because he's not that guy at all, right? He's this sort of expansive. I mean, the McDonald's news moment, it was the most perfect embodiment of who this guy is. I still think that that's what the country wants and is ready for. You probably didn't wake up this morning and expect to discuss the Edict of Caracalla on your podcast, Michael.
Of course I did. Every morning.
Of course, I'm sorry.
That expectation.
Well, I was under the impression that nobody expects the Edict of Caracalla, but I guess that's the Spanish Inquisition, which you probably also have discussed. Now that I think about it on the show, the Edict of Caracalla is this sort of obscure 3rd century AD legal reform by Emperor Caracalla, a notorious tyrant, which finally gave up the ghost and attributed citizenship to everybody, effectively every male under Roman jurisdiction. They had very elaborate, kind of complex system, sort of like some of the stuff we do in our territories and outlying, quasi states where some people were citizens, some people had various rights.
Right.
Caracalla was just like, no, everybody is a citizen. Why did he do it? He did it to bulk up his military, that is to get warm bodies who could serve in the Roman military, and to increase his tax base. In other words, the most notorious tyrants in history have been interested in importing mass citizenry in an indistinguishable wash of people for their own craven purposes. I'm not saying that this aspect of history repeats itself. It's just I'm saying that this aspect of history repeats itself. So you're right. Right. The big kind of worry that I have is that there's already been such a craven, cynical, disgusting, self-interested, and most of all, dishonest, hypocritical effort to kind of swell the ranks of the voter rolls with people from God knows where, who may or may not be perfectly decent people, but are obviously being used in this political ploy by the Democrats. That gives me, that keeps me up at night. But I'm hopeful. I've got my first cup of covfefe, and I'm hoping that it's going to be the first of
one of many, many more today. I agree with you on that. I think realistic note. I wouldn't say on that, jokingly on that happy note or something. That's a realistic note. The hour is quite late. This stuff has been going on for a long time. However, we're hopeful because hope is a theological fact, and there are ultimate causes of hope, and I think there are even immediate causes of hope in this election. Though none of us knows, at least not until right now. Everyone needs to go out right now, right this second, and get Spencer's book, Light of the Mind, Light of the World, which is probably the best book I've read in 10 years. Certainly that has come out recently. I guess I've read, like Tolstoy recently, but it's up there. but this book is absolutely magnificent. Light of the Mind, Light of the World. And you should follow Spencer's podcast, Young Heretics. Dr. Klavan, thank you for coming on the show.
Sir, it's always a pleasure. Thanks, Michael.
See you later. Soon. Now, I believe I have one last guest before I have to give up this show to Ben. Is that correct? I think I have one last guest who is somewhere in my building right now. And that would be, well, we don't have her yet. Okay, she's playing hard to get. That's totally fine. And I do want to take at least a few questions from the chat. Vote for President Covfefe, says Sniper. So true. Catherine, hope is one of the 3 theological virtues. That is true. And it's a fact because it's based on a real event that happened. Got to go see you guys tonight, says Conservative of Family. I don't. There are going to be people. If you're like me, at least, good for you if you can take a break from watching the election come in. If you're like me, I have been watching stuff happening, just refreshing my feed since last night when I was writing my show. I was sitting out with a cigar. I've just been refreshing that's probably going to be the case until they call it. So if you can go take a nap or something or go do your work, then that's probably a good idea at some point today, maybe around lunch. Take a little break for lunch and then you can come right back to it. But we will be with you all day long in one form or another. We have Mary Morgan. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so pleased to bring on my friend of Timcast fame. That would be Mary Morgan. Mary Morgan, thank you for being here.
Hi, Michael. You're so close yet so far away.
I know. Well, I was wondering where you are. Are we coming to you live from a black hole or something like that? Where are you?
I don't even know. This is I'm in a broom closet somewhere.
Whoa, man. That might be my old studio, I think. Mary Morgan, you're a Ute. You're a young lady. You've got your finger on the pulse of what all the cool, hip, young, jive-talking kids are doing. What is going to happen tonight?
I'm so glad that you're looking to me for insight about all of the cool, young, hip people. I can enlighten you about what all of the white girl Gen Z voters are thinking about. And I hate to say it, but they are not going to be voting for Trump in droves. They are so activated by the issue of abortion. And I was still thinking about this so much because it came up on Timcast IRL last night, just how much this issue has activated female voters. And I've noticed that really Kamala is campaigning to women and seniors, but to women. And Trump is trying to campaign to everyone, which is what you should do if you're a populist. But it seems to be whatever she is doing is working at least to activate those female voters. And it's really their number one issue. And people find it really disturbing, as they should, if you really think about what that means.
Yes, I saw these ads that, they say, think of your daughters, men. And when you go into the voting booth, think of your daughters and your granddaughters and their rights. And I was talking this over at home last night, and that ad is basically saying, hey, men, if Trump wins, again, this is also kind of based on just Kamala's pandering of her campaign, pushing weird sex stuff and contraception and abortion and all this. But what the ad itself is saying is, hey, men, if Trump wins, your daughter won't be able to be sexually used and abused by lots and lots of men, and she might not be able to kill your grandchild. That's why you have to vote for Kamala. And I thought, that's like a pretty crazy appeal, man. If I were a man, I mean, again, I'm not a man like Tim Walz or whatever, I'm not that new kind of man that they're trying to create. But if I were, that would be really scandalous to me. To say, hey, the chief appeal is vote for Kamala so your daughter can be super promiscuous and abused by all sorts of anonymous men. And then maybe if she becomes pregnant so that she can murder her child, your grandchild. I don't know. That would have me, there would be a Michael-shaped hole in the wall so that I could go run and vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, you're right. It's super disturbing, and it's not just the ads that are pushing those ideas. But when I saw them, I was just like, oh, yeah, your daughter getting an abortion one day. That's just every father's dream, right? Where is this coming from? And I really just think it's a spiritual problem. And again, this came up on IRL last night. We were talking about how people aren't having kids as much. And I think Phil pointed out that there aren't pro-family policies, but really it's got to start with the culture and these cultural attitudes. They are clearly targeting people with those cultural attitudes with those ads. And they do exist, unfortunately. Those attitudes do exist. And the reason why abortion is so prized in our culture, especially by women, partly it's because of fear. There's a lot of fear about violence, lack of resources, survival in our progressive future. But most of all, it's about how it represents our sexual license. And this is the key to our sexual license.
Yeah,
and we've decided that that's the trade-off we want to make for it.
This is why the left needs abortion, is because the left is pro-sexual revolution. So if you do it in the old way, which is, if you want to do that deed, you have to be married. And if you do it and you become pregnant and you're not married, then you actually probably should just get married. And but if you don't believe that, if you're going to try to blow up that whole thing, the fundamental political unit, which is the marriage, then you can try to do it with contraception. But contraception is not foolproof. Contraception, people get pregnant even on contraception. And so then you need that stopgap in order to really pretend that men and women are exactly the same and they're not complementary and marriage is unnecessary and a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. If you're going to pretend that, as the Democrats have for 60 years now or 50 years now, then you need that final measure that says, okay, and if you do get pregnant, we'll kill your kid for you, and it's totally fine. And it has activated women. I wonder, though, especially for these younger women who are voting on this issue, I kind of wonder if it's younger women, and also I've noticed some like boomer women who came up during the 60s and 70s when abortion was the hot thing. A lot of them, I think, in my experience, they are more left-wing. They're more likely to support Kamala over an issue like that than, say, the millennial women who are kind of getting a little bit more trad, or you're seeing a return to religion among certain millennials. It's become almost a meme, but you do see it in real life. I wonder, though, have these people ever met a woman who had an abortion? I know a number of women who have had abortions. All of them have been traumatized by it. Every single one of them. And some of them are open about that fact, and some of them are just kind of white knuckling it and they're in denial, but it's obvious to anyone who has eyes. Like, could you imagine you're a father or a grandfather or something, and you listen to that Kamala ad and you think, yes, what I really want for my daughter or granddaughter is to have an abortion. Even forget about the baby for a moment. I want my daughter or granddaughter to live with an unspeakable trauma for the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm. And if we're to believe the statistic that I believe it's 1 in 4 women in this country have gotten an abortion, possibly multiple, that is incredibly common. And I feel bad sharing this personal anecdote because it makes me look bad. But I recently drove past this pro-abortion rally where all of these older women that you were talking about, these boomers, were holding up pro-abortion signs. And one of them said, abortion is healthcare. And I just threw up a middle finger at this lady, and I should not have done that.
It was an expression of passion.
I realized, immediately afterwards, the reason you shouldn't do that is because a lot of these older women, as you said, are white knuckling on the issue because it personally has affected them. Not through someone they know, but themselves. A lot of them have gotten abortions decades past, and maybe multiple, and it deeply affects them. The shame is palpable, and it gets expressed in these displays of exhibitionism and pride and shout your abortion. So it's really sad. It's tragic, and their feelings of shame are being exploited by these political ads.
And by the devil. I mean, this is one of the tricks of the devil. It's like a really basic trick, but The devil whispers in your ear and says, hey, that thing, that sin you want to commit, it's no big deal. It's not a problem. Don't worry. Just do it. And then the minute you do it, the devil says, by the way, that's completely unforgivable. You're dead. You're toast. Right. You're done. And so the thing is, for a conservative, certainly for Christians, we would say, you can be forgiven. There's really nothing that you can do that you can't be forgiven for. Just ask forgiveness. Just repent. But in order to do that, you have to look yourself in the mirror and admit that you've done a horrible, horrible thing. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that. And then you've got a political movement that's pandering to you and saying, no, it's actually great. It's good. That shame you feel, push it deep, deep down. Baby, shout your abortion, vote, forget about the economy, forget about inflation, forget about your national borders, forget about all the wars that could start and have started after they booted Trump out. Forget about all that stuff. All that matters is that you not acknowledge that human life is dignified and ought to be protected all along the way, especially innocent human life. So, okay, on that, all those happy notes, Mary Morgan, do you have any predictions, not just for the young women, but do you have predictions for how the night goes?
Well, I just saw that baby hippo, Moo Dang, was presented with a couple of watermelons. Mm-hmm. And one of them said Trump and the other said Kamala. And she picked Trump. So she doesn't have a track record. I think she was born like 4 months ago. But I think I'm just going to go with that. Last night, I said that I thought Kamala was going to win. I take it back. I was just saying words. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think Trump is going to win. And it's because of something you said, like his story can't end like that.
It can't end.
He's such a mythological person. His story just doesn't, it will not end with a loss. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, that's good. But I'm really pleased to see the Moo Dang endorsement because, just in the last 24 hours, we got the Rogan endorsement. That was big. We got the Megyn Kelly endorsement. That was a big one.
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes' mom endorsed. That was big. But I think a lot of people were waiting to see if Moo Dang would make a formal endorsement and which way, pardon, I'm so excited. My hands are going all over the place. Which way Moo Dang would go. And so I'm pleased to see, Moo Dang is not afraid of being canceled, is not afraid of retribution from the left. Clearly, without question.
Yeah.
Moo Dang, Mary Morgan, and everyone in between. Mary Morgan, thank you so much. I think I'll be seeing you later. Is that right?
Yes, definitely.
Actually, I'll probably see you later just in the break room because, they're kind of all around here. Right? The Timcast is all over. Okay, before I finally hand this over to Ben, I do want to at least speak to the crème de la crème just a little bit more because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm so glad that we're out on X and we're out on YouTube right now and people are glued to their screens all day, of course, and you're going to be refreshing. That's good, but we got to take questions only from the Daily Wire Plus members. So if you want to get your questions in there, express your opinions, your passions, your irascible appetites, you need to become a Daily Wire Plus member. Great way to get your Mayflower cigars. Great way to get, all sorts of stuff. The candles. Sniper says, Mary Morgan is dark MAGA and also lovely. She is dark MAGA in that black box that we've locked her in to do these hits. Let's see. Vote for Trump in Minnesota. So true. That would be great. One time I was sitting with Ed Rollins, who was Ronald Reagan's campaign manager in 1984. That was the reelect. And officially, Reagan won 49 states. The only state that he lost was Walter Mondale's home state. That was Walter Mondale was the opponent of Minnesota. And Ed told me, he said, I actually think we won Minnesota too, but we didn't want to look greedy and sue for it. So we, accepted 49 states. But he thought that Trump won Minnesota and there was just some shenanigans going on. So I don't know. That would be absolutely magnificent if Trump could win Minnesota. I'm not counting on it. But Dr. John, Richard Gere just endorsed Harris. Such great memes. Can you say gerbil? That's not nice. Richard Gere is actually a cousin of mine. This is true. I'm not making this up. Richard Gere is a descendant of Lydia Fuller. Lydia Fuller married Simon Knowles. I'm sorry. He's a descendant of Lydia's mother, who was also Lydia, I think, something like that. But anyway, he's not a Knowles descendant, but he is a descendant from my Mayflower ancestors, like my Mayflower cigar. And he and I had the same acting teacher when I was a young boy, and he was much younger. How confident are you that Trump will win? Says Mins. Not confident. I'm hopeful. I'd put a small amount of money on it. The reason it's so difficult to make election predictions this time is because the Democrats changed all the rules last time. That's the real reason. There are other reasons. It's a tight race. It's a crazy election. Things have happened that haven't happened in the past. Recently, Trump was nearly assassinated. The Democrats swapped out their nominee. They're just when you don't have a long track record, when there's not a lot of precedent, then it's hard to make predictions based on old models. But also the Democrats just changed all the rules. So when you have wider mail-in voting, when you have early voting, when you have all these things, it confounds the models. Comma, chameleon, says Phantom Buick. She comes and goes. So true. My grandma's super leftist. 0 out of 10 would not recommend, says Napic R. Well, you might recommend your grandmother, but probably not her views. Picardy 46455. I got pregnant while on birth control and decided to have our child. Best decision we ever made. It is a great decision to not have an abortion or anything like that. That's, all's well that ends well, I suppose. Trump ain't winning the popular vote, says Tyler H. It seems unlikely that he would win the popular vote, but that'd be great. P callings 144846. I couldn't sleep well last night. I was so nervous about the election. Yeah. I did not sleep well last night, which is unusual for me, unless the kids wake me up or something. But last night I slept in the guest room, actually, because I wanted to get a good night's sleep, and I didn't anyway. Let's see. Ken Cheshire 6938. My son's girlfriend had an abortion 10 years ago. He has moved on, but the loss of that baby still haunts him today. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Many, many such cases. I'm a 62-year-old boomer and voted early for Trump, says Unwoke0906. Let's go. Love to hear that. Unwoke0906. They want to pull up the ladder for all of these other women by denying them family and happiness, says Cricket Me. That's a good way to put it. The libs say, you want to pull up the ladder of all this progress and, deny it to all of these women. But no, it's kind of the opposite. What the libs are doing is denying happiness and flourishing and tradition and all the stuff that's made women happy for all of history. Based Hippo, says Padraig89. Yes, Mudang all the way, says Noah Bruce. Animals for Trump, hippos, squirrels, raccoons, cats, and dogs, says Cricket Me. Yeah, animals have played a disproportionate role in this presidential election, haven't they? Michael's Italian is coming out of his hands. These are some seriously Italian gesticulations. I know they are. I'm getting a little excited today. I don't know what else to tell you. What do we got before we go? Let's just check in on some of the last polls. John Ralston. This story came in later last night. John Ralston is one of the most respected pollsters in Nevada. Ralston is predicting a Trump win in Nevada. Or I'm sorry, fake news. He's predicting that the Democrats will win in Nevada. Kamala Harris and also Jackie Rosen running in the Senate race against Sam Brown. Sam Brown, who's been on the show, who did a wonderful interview, which you can get on my YouTube channel. Are pretty slim. Ralston is saying that Harris will win by 0.3%. So 48.5% to Trump's 48.2%. That's pretty tight. Obviously, all these pollsters are trying to give themselves plausible deniability here. They don't want to make bold predictions. He's saying that Jackie Rosen's going to beat Sam Brown by 5%. Now, do you believe this or not? There have been good moves in Nevada recently. However, something to remember is that Harry Reid, the old Senate Majority Leader Democrat, he built a pretty powerful machine out there in Nevada. And so certain states are more corrupt than other states. It's just how it is. And Nevada has a decent amount of corruption and also just has a working political machine, even beyond the illegality. It's just got a working political machine. So that's a fear. It probably wouldn't affect the election all that much. The paths to 270 don't really require Nevada. But I think it also shows you just how the pollsters do not want to go out on a limb here. No matter what happens, the pollsters can say, okay, well, we almost had it. Unless it's a blowout, unless it legitimately is too big to rig. I mean, to Spencer's point earlier, I think basically no one knows. No one knows. No one wants to risk anything. The risk aversion of the pollsters right now tells you that the pollsters are saying that the political temperature of the country is very, very high. And so everyone's on tenterhooks. Even people who are cool, calm, and collected, like your boy here, are not sleeping well. And we might not sleep well for a few days, depending on how those how those results come in. Is everyone else watching Michael speak with Marsha Blackburn? Says Bailey Spillman. I was speaking with Marsha Blackburn about an hour ago. So you're a little bit behind, I think, in the chat. Let's go Trump. If you predict a close race and it's a blowout, that's not a very good hedge, says Patch. That's true. That's a good point. But it's a more forgivable hedge because at least half the people will be very happy. Spears Jammer 0542, one of the most ardent supporters of Trump that I know, is a Mexican immigrant. He entered illegally as a teenager, but worked hard, spent a lot of hard-earned money to eventually earn his citizenship. Lots of Hispanics around here, WV and Northern Virginia, supporting Trump. Well, this is the question. Beyond who is going to win, beyond the down-ballot races, is the political alignment real? We've been told for many cycles now there's a realignment going on, racial realignment, class realignment. Is that happening? We're going to find out. But you know what we're going to find out right now? We're going to find out what my friend Ben Shapiro has to talk about today. Ben, are you there?
I am here. The day has come. Judgment Day. Okay, Michael, I got to ask you, facts don't care about your feelings, but I do. So what are your feelings on this day of days?
I'm going to be completely straight with you. I'm not joking or being cute at all. I slept horribly last night. And it's not just because of my kids. I slept in the guest room because I knew we're going to be up for 72 hours. And I tried to get a good night's sleep. I feel like I slept for 45 minutes. I am not a nervous guy. I'm on edge. How about you?
No, I'm stressed as well. I will say that about 4:55 this morning, I woke up and I was wide awake because I was just thinking, man, how is this day going to go? I will say that I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. I mean, looking at the data, looking at the early voting numbers, again, that's reading chicken entrails, but Republicans are doing much better than they did in 2020 in the early voting numbers. If it were the reverse, then you'd feel really terrible. So that's one way of looking at these things. Also, it's hard to see this drama ending with Kamala Harris as president of the United States. She's a nothing. She's a big nothing burger. And she's a bad nothing burger as well. So, again, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that we're going to be here all hours for the next year, just figuring out exactly who won. So not super enthused about that. But, there's a lot to talk about. Everybody needs to get out and vote. That's the big one, right? Everybody votes. Everybody votes today. This is not the day where you're in Pennsylvania and just get lazy, and then it turns out that David McCormick loses his race by one vote because you decided to stay home, or Donald Trump ends up not going back to the White House because, your car broke down. Like, find a way to the polls, get all your friends to vote as well. It's just too important. Now, Michael, any closing thoughts before we see you later on the set for the rest of our lives?
Yes, I've already voted. So what I'm going to go now is I'm going to go drink, Ben, because you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
And that is an excellent point. Well, folks, we here at the Ben Shapiro Show, we're going to jump into all the news in just a moment. First, here is a message from all of us here at Daily Wire. In 2016, Donald Trump won by just 77,000 votes across 3 states.
In 2004, just one state, Ohio, decided the presidency by about 118,000 votes.
In 2000, just 537 votes in Florida decided the presidency.
In 1960, John F. Kennedy won by fewer than 120,000 votes.
In 1876, Rutherford B. Hayes won by just 1 electoral vote.
You cast it?
Shut up.
You're very old.
Every vote matters, every time. To preserve our freedom, to protect our children, to fix our broken economy. Vote.
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 Visit election.dailywire.com to find your polling place and vote today.
Folks, it's just that important. Plus, it is back. One last chance. This time it's more important than ever. Get 47% off your new Daily Wire Plus annual membership with code FIGHT. Remember? Yeah. Then make sure you're with us all night, election night, for the rest of our lives. Our full coverage starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. Yes, we will be live all night until the winner is declared sometime in 2027. Giving real coverage in real time on the night it actually matters. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code FIGHT for 47% off your new Daily Wire Plus membership and be here to watch history unfold live with us tonight. Well, folks, as I've said, you need to go out and vote today if you have not already. So I voted early because obviously I have to be in Nashville. That is not where I'm registered. But you need to vote if you have not today. This election is just too important. You need to vote because there are serious things at stake, as I discussed yesterday on the show. There is a broader question at stake today in this election, though. Whether we're a nation that actually wants to be dynamic, or whether we just want to continue our slide into senescence. Are we a nation that actually wants an economy of innovation and entrepreneurship and building, Or do we want an economy that's about redistribution, stagnation, punishment of success? Are we a nation that wants a foreign policy of strength with powerful allies and our enemies in retreat? Or are we a nation that would like to abandon the world stage, handing power to our enemies as the light goes out? Are we a nation that wants to build on the roots of family and community? Or are we a country that wants to trade the institutions that actually make life worth living, family, community, in favor of a top-down dictation from a self-appointed elite who believe that their untried values ought to supplant time-tested virtues? But most of all, you need to vote because you actually do owe it to both your ancestors and your progeny to do so. See, here's the thing. Democracy, in the general sense, is totally and utterly unnatural. The earliest beginnings of democracy were in ancient Athens, but of course the vote was heavily restricted. The same was true in ancient Rome. Modern democracy in the West has its roots in Magna Carta, in the Estates General of France, but actually didn't reach full fruition in the way we think of democracy until probably the glorious revolution of 1688 in Great Britain. See, here's the thing about democracy. It takes centuries to inculcate the values of democracy, the rights of the people to be free of arbitrary government, which is the thing that lies at the heart of Western democracy. We are not subjects. We are citizens. We are citizens with rights and with duties. And we build social fabric together in order to share those duties and to enable the functioning of those rights. And then governments are instituted by people in order to protect those rights and to enshrine those duties. This idea lies at the heart of the American experiment. It's also why we have checks and balances, why we are small R Republicans and not just pure Democrats. The founders, you see, were pretty cautious about democracy. They knew its promises. They knew its perils. They knew the power of the mob. That's why the single most important paragraph ever written on the American system can be found in Federalist 51 by James Madison, the framer of the Constitution. He said this, quote, "What is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. A dependence on the people is no doubt the primary control on the government, but experience has taught mankind the necessity of auxiliary precautions." So the founders instituted checks and balances because Madison was right. But Madison was also right that in the end, the primary control on the government is a dependence on the judgment of the people. And that's the thing we all have to agree on in order for our democracy, things that all our politicians like to talk about. Democracy has to work. It can only work if we agree on that central principle. This kind of struck me last week. I was standing in line with my wife to vote in Florida, and it was a long line. People of every age and race were in the line. But everybody was there because they agreed to this really weird common principle that we would abide by the collective decision of all of us about who would represent us for things like the presidency, for Congress, for the Senate. That's weird. It's unnatural. It's amazing. We abided by the common notion that we actually share a nation together, and that if our side lost, we understand that next time we might still win because our neighbors are persuadable and we know them. That we're willing to delegate some of the biggest stakes decisions in life to a system that actually values the opinions of our fellow citizens. This is the thing. Democracy, small d democracy, only works when both sides are invested in the bargain. If one side always believes they're going to lose, they're not going to buy in. They'd revolt. If you believe you're in a permanent minority and that your rights are constantly being trampled and there's no prospect of victory, that's when democracy breaks down. Jefferson says in the Declaration of Independence that government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. That consent really only continues if we all believe enough in one another and in our system. Now, we all know that system is fraying. For sure, that's true. For 1,000 reasons, it's fraying. Because of the media, because of our politicians, because of our institutions. Because there are 1,000 reasons. But it's not breaking down today. Everybody's going to the polls. You're going to the polls. I already went. Thanks to the checks and balances of the framers who understood both the value and the dangers of democracy, we can rest assured that if the other person wins, yes, things will get worse, but we will survive. Contrary to popular opinion, this will not be the last election. It truly will not be the last election. Now, with that said, this vote matters more than most. Because while this will not be the last election in the United States of America, it is an inflection point. We can continue down a path of polarizing the country by race, sex, and identity, or we can reverse that process and see each other as individuals. We can continue to tear apart the country by indicting each other as oppressors and pretending that we are the oppressed. Or we can together seize the future and recognize that if we make the right decisions, we'll succeed. We can continue to retreat from the world, or we can remember that America always was and still remains the last best hope of mankind. So today, you absolutely should vote. You should vote because you can, and because that is an immense privilege earned by the blood of others and still denied to most of humanity today as we sit here and talk. And you should vote because you should, because your vote in this election, a tight election like this one, is certainly going to matter. All right, so where do we stand on Election Day? Well, there are a couple of theories as to how this race is going to go. One theory is how Trump can win, and one theory is how Kamala can win. I think it is fairly safe to say that Donald Trump has the advantage in the so-called Sun Belt states. North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada's probably dead even. The Sun Belt states are probably in Trump's corner at this point. Politico is even acknowledging as much today. They say that basically she is relegated to the Rust Belt. They say that she is stronger than it appears, perhaps, in blue wall states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But she's fallen apart basically in some of the Sun Belt states because her coalition is different. According to Politico, Trump's gains with voters of color looks real. That has required Harris to dip into traditionally Republican voter pools like whites and older voters. Now, normally this would be a good indicator for Trump, right? If you told me before this election cycle, Republicans are going to win an outsized share of Hispanics and black voters, and that Kamala is going to have to try to appeal to old white people to get out to vote for her, I would say advantage Trump. And I think it is still advantage Trump today. Politico says if months of handicapping are right, the election will come down once again to Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. That's Harris's most likely path to victory. Polling has shown Harris's strength with white voters, especially in northern states. That's why even as national polls show a tie on the eve of the election, her path has remained clear, if difficult. Thanks to a slight improvement over 2020 among black voters, Trump will likely chip away a little in those states' big cities like Detroit, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. Harris is hoping that isn't enough. They say the Sun Belt states look harder for her. That's Politico's take, not mine. Okay, so that's Politico that's pretty down on her prospects in this race. It is also worth noting that there are fundamentals to this race that pre-exist the actual election cycle. So James Freeman, writing for the Wall Street Journal today, he points out that Republicans have really ramped up voter registration in recent years. In the New York Times' Nate Cohen, summing up this trend, he said, Republicans rapidly gaining ground across the country. He notes, quote, all of the battleground states with party registration, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, will probably have more registered Republicans than Democrats in November, even if Harris wins with support from growing ranks of the unaffiliated. In the longer sweep of the last 16 years, this is an enormous change. Emily Crane over at the New York Post quotes Republican pollster Alex Castellanos, who explained on Fox News, quote, what I think they're missing is a massive shift in voter registration underneath all of this. 31 states have voter registration by party. 30 of them in the past 4 years have seen movement toward Republicans. Now, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin do not register voters by party. However, if you look at Pennsylvania, the terrain there seems to be getting more friendly to him all the time, according to the Wall Street Journal. Charles Thompson for the Harrisburg Patriot News says the Donald Trump era, for whatever else it has been, has proven to be a great party-building period for the Republican Party. There are now more registered Republican voters in Pennsylvania than ever before. The party now numbers about 3.7 million. Democrats are still the largest party in number in Pennsylvania, but the Democratic Party's 280,000 vote lead in voter registration is down from 1.2 million at the height of the Barack Obama fever in 2008. The margin for Democrats in voter registration heading into 2020 was almost 700,000. So Republicans have made some significant gains in a lot of these swing states in terms of voter registration. And we do have some early voting data. And again, with all the provisos, which we'll get into in a moment, they're still interesting. We'll get to that momentarily. First, every year when Apple releases the new iPhone, the big carriers play those same old games. Sign your life away for the next 2 years. Get a free iPhone. You don't have to fall for this. With Pure Talk, you can get great savings on the new iPhone 16, and you can still get an affordable data plan that fits your needs on America's most dependable 5G network. How would I know? Well, because I actually have done this. I have the new iPhone 16 from my friends over at Pure Talk. Bottom line, stop falling into the same traps and overpaying for data you're not going to use. With Pure Talk, for just $35 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data, plus mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network. But wait, it gets even better. When you switch over to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. Woo-hoo-hoo. That means access to our full library of movies, series, and documentaries. Listen up, folks. Now you can get exclusive access to Matt Walsh's latest bombshell, Am I Racist? You saw the commercial on MSNBC last night. Trust me, the left is squirming about this. That's not all. You're getting uncensored, ad-free daily shows, a full year of our kids' platform, Bentkey, and your very own leftist tears, Tumblr. The only way you can get this special offer is by going to puretalk.com/Shapiro, or you can call and mention my name. Stop overpaying for your cell phone plan. Head on over to puretalk.com/Shapiro today. Switch to a qualifying plan. Get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. Also, even if you think it's a little bit overhyped, AI is suddenly everywhere, from self-driving cars to molecular medicine to business efficiency. If it's not in your industry yet, it is definitely coming and fast. But AI needs tons of speed and computing power. So how do you compete without cost spiraling out of control? Time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a blazing fast and secure platform for infrastructure, database, application development, plus all your AI and machine learning workloads. OCI costs 50% less for compute and 80% less for networking. So you are saving just buckets and buckets of cash. Thousands of businesses have already upgraded to OCI, including MGM Resorts, Specialized Bikes, and Fireworks AI. Right now, Oracle is offering to cut your current cloud bill in half if you move on over to OCI. For new U.S. customers with minimum financial commitment, offer ends December 31st, 2024. See if your company qualifies for the special offer at oracle.com/Shapiro. Again, that's oracle.com/Shapiro for the special deal. Once more, oracle.com/Shapiro. Okay, so taking a look at this early voting data. And again, got to take it with a grain of salt because the big question is how much of this is cannibalizing the high propensity voters, right? People like me who normally vote on election day, I voted early instead. I can't vote twice. So if I voted early, that's not like the Republicans won additional votes. But suffice it to say that if the flip were true, meaning if Republicans were really, really lagging badly in the early voting, Democrats would already be calling the election. So there is an indicator here, and it is that Republicans are in fact doing better than expected. So Elon Musk a little bit earlier today tweeted out the R-D early vote deltas in the swing states. Okay, so again, that would be like the change from 2020 to 2024 in the difference in early voting between Republicans and Democrats, because Democrats just destroyed Republicans in early voting in 2020, which is why you saw this giant blue shift, this sort of tidal wave that happened late at night on election night in 2020, right? Trump won the day of, which was expected, and then all the mail-ins came in, and it turns out that every Democrat and their dead grandmother had voted, and so that wiped away whatever leads Trump had in many of those swing states like Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and all the rest. Okay, so here is the difference. Okay, so in terms of Republicans overperforming 2020, in Arizona, Republicans are overperforming 2020 by 200,000 votes. In Georgia, they're overperforming their mail-in performance of 2020 by 451,000 votes. In Michigan, they're overperforming their 2020 performance by 136,000 votes. In Nevada, by 83,000 votes. In North Carolina, by 290,000 votes. In Pennsylvania, which is the biggie, because if Trump wins Pennsylvania, this election is effectively over. In Pennsylvania, Republicans versus Democrats, Democrats had over 1 million more mail-in votes, early votes, than Republicans did in 2020. As of yesterday, as of last night, their advantage was just 423,000. Now, I had heard some rumors that Democrats really need a firewall of maybe 500,000 votes. Now, and that's speculative. Bottom line is Democrats are underperforming, Republicans are overperforming in some of the early mail-in voting. That is a change of 600,000 votes. That's a big change in terms of Republicans actually taking advantage of the mail-in and early voting procedures in places like Pennsylvania. In Wisconsin, same story. There's been a delta of about 83,000 votes. Those are all very good numbers for the Republicans. So what does that mean? That means that if the vote goes like it did in Pennsylvania day of, this time, Trump wins. Okay, so that means get out and vote. Get out and vote. So you can see there's a Democratic sort of plan right now that relies on some wish casting. That wish casting is that there is a shy Kamala vote. I think this is really, really unlikely. Truly unlikely. I think that if you were going to steel man a case for Kamala Harris, like make a strong case for why Kamala Harris is going to win, the strongest case for Kamala Harris goes something like this. Pollsters have it wrong. The reason that pollsters have it wrong is because they are jogging their voter screen. So when pollsters do their polls, there are two ways that you can do a poll. One is a registered voters poll. You just take a baseline of the registered voting public, and then you plug it in the machine, you get a number. It's actually how Ann Seltzer does her polls over in Iowa. Just registered voters. Then you have what are called likely voter screens. A likely voter screen, that is pollsters trying to read the tea leaves. That's trying to figure out whether this guy, like what percentage of black voters are actually going to show up on election day. Registered voters is, we kind of know how many registered voters there are. We'll take a poll of all those registered voters and we'll throw it out. Okay, but a likely voter screen means that you can game the system. It means that you can say, okay, well, we think that only 55% of black voters are going to actually show up to the polls this time. Or maybe we think 80% of black voters are going to show up to the polls this time. And so you change how many likely voters you think are going to show up. So the case for Kamala is that the pollsters are so afraid of missing in the direction they missed in 2016 and 2020. Namely, they underestimated Trump support. They're so scared of underestimating Trump support that they're actually overestimating Trump support in order to overcompensate, because the incentive structure is that if they once again underestimate Trump's support and then Trump wins, they're afraid that they are out of business, that everybody's going to be super angry at them. Whereas if they underestimate Kamala's support and then she wins, the Democrats are going to be so happy that they're not going to care, and the rest is history. There's no question there's some poll grouping going on. So that theory is not totally wild. There's no I mean, as Nate Silver points out, if you really thought this was a 48-48 election, the average would be 48-48, but not every poll would be 48-48. Think about that for a second. Normally, the way that you do a poll average is you have some that say like 47-44 and some that say 47-44 the other way, and then you average them, and it's a dead race. It's a dead even race. But this is a weird race that suggests, again, that the pollsters are screwing around with the numbers, because the average and the actual polls are the same. Every poll is showing 47-47, 48-48. And that means somebody is gaming the system. We just don't know what direction. So if you're a Harris supporter, your hope is that they're actually overestimating Trump's support levels in these likely voter screens. The other thing that they are trying to promote is this idea that there's a shy Harris vote. I think this is crazy. I honestly think this is a crazy suggestion. Kamala Harris's team, by the way, thinks this is true. This is why they've run out 2 separate ads, one to men and one to women, both saying the same thing. You remember, we played them on the show. There was the ad to women that says, you don't have to tell your husband who you're voting for in that voting booth. You get in there, you wink at the other ladies, and then you vote feminist. And then there's the one to men, where men look at each other, and then they secretly vote for Kamala. I don't even know what the logic here is, honestly. Do you know a single human being who is shy in supporting Kamala Harris? Who are these people? Seriously, who are these people? There was a shy Trump vote in 2016, 2020, because there was social ostracism attached to voting for Donald Trump. What is the negative incentive structure that would cause you to be a shy Kamala voter in, say, Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin? It's such tripe. It's such a silly argument. Again, the Wall Street Journal is positing maybe that's the case. When pollsters set out to explain how they missed Trump's Electoral College victory in 2016, says the Wall Street Journal, and their underestimation of Trump's strength once again in 2020, one thought was that some of the candidates' supporters were wary of civic institutions and so were masking their true voting intentions. They were dubbed shy Trump voters. The opposite might now be the case, some campaign strategists think. Pressure in some communities to support Trump is so strong that voters who don't back him, particularly the women, might be the ones who this year are hesitant to reveal their true intentions. Mark Putnam, Democratic ad maker, says, quote, I don't have direct evidence of this, but in this highly contentious environment, it's not implausible for there to be significant percentages of women voters who are not just hiding their intended Harris vote from significant others, but also from pollsters. No, that's trash. I'm sorry. That is not happening. If that happens, I will eat my shoe, man. That is super duper unlikely. More likely that pollsters are overestimating Trump's support because they don't want to get it wrong in the same direction they got it wrong in 2016, 2020. The idea that there are shy Harris, have you met a Kamala Harris supporter? These are the least shy people about their votes on earth. These are people like sit by their phones waiting for a pollster to call to tell you how much they love the brat and the joy of Kamala Harris. So I don't buy that at all. Nonetheless, that is the line that so many in the Democratic Party are taking. It sounds like desperation. It kind of stinks of desperation. Monica Hess has a piece of the Washington Post positing the same thing, quote, marriage and the shy Harris voter. Some anti-Trumpers have a theory about the wives of Trump-loving men. With American democracy facing a fourth down, I can't stop thinking about a new ad produced by the Lincoln Project. In it, 2 middle America couples arrive at their polling place. The grip and grin husbands affirm to each other they are going to vote for him. As for their wives, she doesn't like him, but she's voting for him. One man tells the other, same with mine, his buddy says approvingly, but silly husbands. Okay, first of all, the Lincoln Project knows as much about lady as they do about age barriers for sexual relationships, allegedly. So, that is what it is. But again, this idea that women are quietly voting against the will of their overbearing patriarchal husband is so stupid. I don't see it at all. I don't. So again, if you got to put money on it, every pollster has this thing dead even. Nate Silver's got it dead even. Harry Enton's got it dead even. Real Clear Politics has dead even. I'm gonna say slight advantage Trump. And if I had to put out my map right now, in fact, I'm just going to do that right now. Okay, so I'll put it out on the line. Yep, means nothing. I could be totally wrong. I think there is a solid chance that the polls are underestimating Trump support again. And the reason I say this is because if you are a Trump supporter and a pollster calls you, how often you hang up the phone? Probably depends on the pollster. But if the New York Times, Sienna calls me for a poll, I ain't staying on the phone. I'm not. If you're a low propensity voter, you are certainly not staying on the phone. And Trump has a gift at getting out low propensity voters. So Here is best case scenario for Donald Trump, and I think it actually is going to materialize tonight. Okay, if you vote, if you get your asses out there and vote. Okay, so here's best case scenario. Trump takes all the Sun Belt states. He takes North Carolina. He takes Georgia. I think both those are very likely. Arizona is very likely. I think that he sneaks Nevada in there. The early voting in Nevada looks very... I understand John Ralston is suggesting that he can pinpoint the vote down to 30,000 votes in Nevada. I have serious questions about whether that is the case. But I think that Trump's durability in Nevada throughout this entire race, he's basically led in Nevada almost wire to wire. I'd be a little surprised if he doesn't win Nevada. And then you get to the Rust Belt states. I think Trump, you ready for this? I think Trump's going to win all of them. I think Trump's going to win all of them. And the reason I say that I think that Trump is going to win all of them is because if you look at places like Ohio, they are trending redder. Those Rust Belt states are trending red. They're not trending blue. Okay, there's certain states that I didn't give to Trump in this map. I didn't give Trump Virginia. Virginia is trending blue. It is not trending red. Virginia is going to look more like Colorado than it looks like Ohio. Ohio used to be a swing state. Florida used to be a swing state. They're no longer swing states. They're solidly red. Virginia looks more like Colorado. Used to be a swing state, has now moved blue. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, those states look more like Ohio than they do like Virginia, meaning I believe that they are trending red. Okay, there's some support for this. Real Clear Politics right now has Trump up 0.4 in Pennsylvania. They have Harris up 0.5 in Michigan. Do you think there's going to be heavy Harris turnout in Michigan? How's that Detroit vote looking? How about Dearborn? There can be big votes for Kamala Harris. What's the enthusiasm level for Kamala in Michigan day of? And as for Wisconsin, Wisconsin is a notoriously difficult state to poll. I think Eric Hovde may actually drag Trump up the ticket. I think Eric Hovde, who's the senatorial candidate in Wisconsin, who is running extremely strong in Wisconsin right now, I think Hovde wins that race. By the way, I think that Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania wins that race based on the early voting numbers. Again, this is all reading tea leaves. It could all go the other way. But if there's as much of a polling error as I think there may be with regard to Trump levels of support, again, so much of this is anecdotal. You just walk around, you see many more people who are willing to say out loud the thing they were not willing to say out loud in 2016, 2020. I think Trump has a shot at New Hampshire. Right? New Hampshire right now in the Real Clear Politics polling average, New Hampshire, Harris is only leading there by 3.5 points in New Hampshire. And the Rasmussen Reports poll from late October has her up 1. So that is a small state. And if Dixville Notch, which is the little town that votes early every year, they vote at midnight on election day, and then they explain their vote. That town went in 2020 5-0 Biden-Trump. It's like 6 people. This year, it went 3-3. If that's the case, outside shot at New Hampshire. Okay, and if that were the case, Donald Trump would walk away with the election. So that is the most optimistic case. Not going to say it's going to happen, but may as well put my prediction on the board. That is my prediction for tonight because, again, I think that there is, maybe I'm too optimistic. I know, unlike me. And with every proviso, but only true if you get out and vote right now. In just a second, we'll get to the closing arguments of the candidates. First, you know what's fascinating about the left? They're always trying to erase traditional American culture. It's very weird. But guess what? Real American traditions like Western boots, they ain't going nowhere. And speaking of Western boots, let me tell you about Tecovas. Walk into our national office on any given day, you'll see at least half our team wearing their boots. There's a reason for that. These boots aren't just footwear. They're a statement about standing firm in your values. I wear the Dean myself. I got to tell you, they don't just make you feel confident. They look absolutely fantastic. If there's a man who can wear boots, he's sitting right here. Every pair of Tecovas boots goes through over 200 meticulous steps of handcrafting. That's the kind of attention to detail and craftsmanship that made America great in the first place. Unlike the federal government, Tecovas actually delivers on their promises. These boots are incredibly comfortable directly out of the box. Born in Texas in 2015, Tecovas has quickly become the go-to boot maker for everyone, from generational ranchers to first-time boot buyers like myself. Here is the best part. Whatever your size, style, or need, you are going to find your perfect boot. Plus, with their Best in the West guarantee, you get free returns and exchanges for 30 days. So whether you're fighting to take back the culture, on the field, in the office, out on the town, Tecovas has got something for you. Right now, get 10% off at tecovas.com/Shapiro when you sign up for email and texts. That's tecovas.com/Shapiro, tecovas.com/Shapiro. See site for details. Tecovas, point your toes west. Also, and it's tough to prioritize your health, especially if you're not sure where to start. That's why I'm excited to introduce Lumen. So Lumen is such a cool thing. It's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism. This means you know whether you're burning mostly fats or mostly carbs. Forget the one-size-fits-all diet fads. What sets Lumen apart is the personalization. It understands you on a personal level. With the insane news cycle and all the travel I've been doing recently, the device is a lifesaver. It takes my unique metabolic data. It crafts a personalized nutrition plan for every day, tailored to my body's needs and goals. With Lumen, you're not just getting a device, you're getting a health companion. You breathe into it before and after a workout or a meal, gain real-time insights into your body's metabolic response. Better data means better health. Lumen will provide you with actionable tips to help you stay on top of your health. If you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Shapiro. Get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me. Use code Shapiro for 15% off your purchase. That's lumen.me, code Shapiro/Shapiro. Get 15% off your Lumen purchase. Go check that out right now. Okay, so Kamala Harris, for her part, she says she's got the momentum. Oh, so much momentum. Prepare thyself for all the momentum.
One more day left in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime, and momentum is on our side. Momentum is on our side. Can you feel it? We have momentum, right? Because our campaign has tapped into the ambitions and the aspirations and the dreams of the American people. We are optimistic and excited about what we will do together. And we here know it is time for a new generation of leadership in America.
Well, I mean, it's always weird. Joyce says new generation of leadership in America, neglecting the fact that she's the current vice president of the United States. Also, for all the brat and all the joy, she is just so awkward. She's just straight from Veep. Here she was last night at the same rally, failing to get a chant started.
Get out the vote. Let's 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 win.
Man, that's not even how. For a chant to work, it has to be rhythmic. That's it. Not good. My favorite moment, I think, from the closing of her campaign is when she actually attempted to stage a door knocking. I thought this was quite amusing. So she was going door to door in Pennsylvania, trying to show how she was putting in the boot leather. And it didn't go amazing. In fact, she shows up and on a hot mic, she is caught speaking to voters and asking them to go back inside their door so that she can be caught on tape door knocking them.
Hey, Max. Well, I want a door knock.
Oh, you want to do a door knock?
Yeah, come on. Okay.
You want us to go back inside and pretend that we're just to stage a door knock?
I had your hat on the Penn State game in front of 111,000 people on day Saturday.
Well, when that didn't work, she just bust down the door and then killed their pet squirrel or something. So that was exciting stuff. Meanwhile, President Trump, he was also claiming momentum as the evening closed last night. Here was President Trump last night.
You know, we have a massive lead. I don't even like telling you that, to be honest with you. We have a massive lead. First time ever, a Republican was leading by a lot in early, but it didn't happen. The Republicans would always be way behind. They believe in going on Election Day, so we're going to let you go on Election Day, right? But they waited till the end always. Democrats would always have hundreds of thousands of votes, and then you either catch them or you don't. You never know what's going to happen. But Republicans have never been in the lead, and not like this. It's a big number. So we have to just get at, the ball is in our hand. We're at the 2-yard line, maybe the 1-yard line, but it's in our hand, and we put it over that. It'll be the biggest event maybe in the history of our country.
All right, so let's talk about how the evening is actually going to go. First of all, you're going to spend it with us tonight over at Daily Web, and that's clear. You have to, right? I mean, it's going to be amazing. We'll spend the evening together. You will watch Michael Knowles get absolutely drunk as a skunk, mostly on his own giddiness. But let's talk about how this thing actually comes in. So first off, 7 p.m. Eastern, we start to get the early results as the polls close in Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia. Now, the only 2 states in that list that actually kind of matter in terms of looking at how the election is going to come out are, of course, Georgia and Virginia. Virginia, the day of voting, Republicans will start with a big lead, and then Democratic votes are going to come in. It is a blue state. It is not really a purple state. Glenn Youngkin was able to sneak out a solid gubernatorial victory there, but it is really not a purple state anymore, Virginia. With that said, there may be some early indicators of exactly how Republicans are going to perform if they're outperforming in a place like Virginia. Meanwhile, Georgia's votes are going to come in fairly slowly. Georgia, of course, a big swing state. I think that one is in Trump's camp. I think he's going to win that. Half an hour later, North Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia close. Now, it'll be fascinating to see what happens in Ohio. if you see somebody like Bernie Moreno, who's running a very, very close race with Sherrod Brown right now, emerge with a big victory, if he starts to really clock up some numbers in Ohio, which, by the way, I kind of expect. I was out with Bernie in Ohio. He's a great candidate. The state is on fire for Trump. They're on fire for Moreno. I think Moreno takes that seat. I think Sherrod Brown goes home. If he starts to rack up, say, not a 1 or 2 point victory, starts to rack up like a 4, 5, 6 point victory, that could be indicative of how things are going to go in some of the surrounding states, like, for example, Wisconsin and Michigan, which are, of course, in terms of proximity and constituency, relatively close. As far as West Virginia, that, of course, is a Senate seat that is going to go to the Republicans. That would be Jim Justice, who's going to win that Senate seat pretty easily. And then you get to North Carolina. North Carolina, Democrats have been pushing really, really hard. If North Carolina flips blue, Trump has a real uphill battle in winning that election. So North Carolina is going to be a real bellwether. If that one starts to go heavy Democrat early on, if, for example, high black turnout in some of the big cities in North Carolina, that could be indicative of good numbers for Kamala Harris in places like Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, obviously, or Detroit in Michigan, some of the big cities. 8 p.m., you get Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee. Now, again, none of those states make a huge difference in this election. There's some big ballot initiatives in Florida that I voted against, 3 and 4. And if you're voting in Florida today, by the way, vote against amendments 3 and 4. They're both trash. Pennsylvania is, of course, the big question of the night. So this is when the polls close. Really tight race between Bob Casey and Dave McCormick. I was in Pennsylvania with Dave just last week. McCormick's a great candidate. He's been doing all the boot leather, real door knocking on the ground. Pennsylvania is the biggest state in the country right now. So that is all closed by 8 p.m. 9 p.m. is when you get Arizona, Colorado, some Midwestern states. You get Wyoming, you get Montana. So some of these other, Montana closes at 10 p.m. Eastern. So Arizona, looks as though that is going to be a walkaway for Trump. We'll see how Kari Lake does in her race against Ruben Gallego over there. Michigan also closes at 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, again, because this is closing so late, the chances that we get any results from, say, Pennsylvania and Michigan until early morning, because that's when the mail-ins start to be counted, very unlikely. I think that you're most likely to start seeing some real results out of those swing states early morning on Tuesday, on Wednesday at best. Right? That's when but that gives you sort of an indicator of when these polls are going to close and when those results start to be tabulated again. It just demonstrates how stupid our system is, that we're going to have to wait till Wednesday, Thursday to figure out exactly who's the president of the United States at a minimum. This thing could go all the way to Saturday, depending on how close the election is and how quickly those votes are tabulated. Now, in the late breaking moments of the campaign, there were some endorsements on both sides. So yesterday, big story was that Joe Rogan openly endorsed President Trump. That was probably going to happen. I think everybody who's been watching Joe for a while knows that was going to happen. I'm friendly with Joe, obviously. He tweeted out, "The great and powerful Elon Musk, if it wasn't for him, we'd be bleeped. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump. Enjoy the podcast." This, of course, made some people very, very angry, but not Joe Rogan supporters, considering that, again, when it comes to Joe, it has been the Democratic Party that's been on his ass since the 2020 pandemic, when they attempted to basically strong-arm Spotify into deplatforming him. This is not a giant shock. Here was Donald Trump last night at a rally announcing the Joe Rogan endorsement.
Oh, wow. I have some more big news, Megyn. I'm just getting this right now. So somebody that's very, very respected asked me to do his show 2 weeks ago, and I said, why not? And to me, it's very big because he's the biggest there is, I guess, in that world by far. Somebody said the biggest beyond anybody in a long time. And his name is Joe Rogan, and he's never done this before. And it just came over the wires that Joe Rogan just endorsed me. Is that right? Thank you, Joe. That's so nice. And he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that stuff.
Okay, so, obviously Trump excited about that. Why? Well, because the gender gap in this election is extremely severe. Rogan gets out male voters. Male voters are low propensity voters. Female voters in the United States are very high propensity voters. Kamala's obviously counting on big female turnout. If Trump gets heavy male turnout, that will not have been reflected by a lot of these likely voter screens. That means Trump is likely going to win if he gets men to show up to the polls. But speaking of women, it's not just about Joe Rogan. There were two major female endorsers of President Trump yesterday. One was more predicted than the other. Megyn Kelly actually appeared at a rally with President Trump, and I think made a very solid case to women as to why they ought to vote for President Trump, whatever their particular holdups about Trump personally. We'll get to that in just one moment. First, let me tell you about the holidays, the heart of family tradition. You know, those precious moments of being together, whether you're lighting the menorah, decorating the tree, or just sharing a meal. The traditions matter. Have you thought about what happens to your family's traditions when you die? I know that got real dark super fast, but that's exactly why you need to protect your family's future and your peace of mind with Policy Genius. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid those unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius makes finding and buying life insurance simple. They give your loved ones a financial safety net they can use to cover debts and routine expenses, or even invest that money to earn interest over time. Their digital tools let you compare quotes from America's top insurers side by side for free with no hidden fees. And their licensed support team is there to help you get exactly what you need. They answer questions, handle paperwork, advocate for you throughout the entire process. Even if you already have life insurance through work, it might not protect all your family's needs. And it probably won't follow you if you leave your job. Join thousands of happy Policy Genius customers who have left 5-star reviews on both Google and Trustpilot. Secure your family tomorrow so you can have peace of mind today. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro. Get your free life insurance quote. See how much you could save. Policygenius.com/Shapiro. Also, as you know, since I've said so 1 million times, today, America decides its future. Our fight against the left has never mattered more. We need you on the front lines with us. Right now, get 47% off your new Daily Wire Plus annual membership with code FIGHT, because when we fight, we win at dailywire.com/subscribe. The number 47, as you know, is not by chance. It is not a coinky-dink. We're looking forward to a future with President Donald Trump back in the White House as the 47th president. We are challenging the left-wing narrative, mainstream media's distortions, and the deceptive agenda that undermines your voice. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code FIGHT for 47% off your new Daily Wire Plus membership. Then be sure to join us live tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern on Daily Wire Plus for our exclusive election coverage with special guests, including Jordan Peterson, Dennis Prager, Spencer Klavan, and more. Anything can happen. Not anything, but many things can happen. We are here to cover every moment as it unfolds. Daily Wire's Election Night 2024. Watch live starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Daily Wire Plus. Here is a trailer.
November 5th. The night America's fate is decided. As the final votes are counted and a nation waits for the outcome, join us to break down the live election results as only Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and Jeremy Boring can. With special guests appearing live in studio, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, Dennis Prager, and Spencer Klavan. Daily Wire Election Night 2024. Get real-time results and exclusive insights from the most trusted names in media. This is more than an election. It's history in the making. Join the Daily Wire as each vote is counted, each state called, and each race decided. Daily Wire Election Night 2024. Tonight at 6 Eastern, 5 Central.
Alrighty, so be there or be square, because we're going to all watch this country go up in flames or be restored to its glory together. Just join us. Just do it. It'll be a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly came out with her endorsement of President Trump. She went to his rally. Now, again, this is a pretty big switch for Megyn. I mean, obviously, she's been Trump supportive a lot of this election cycle. She's sort of shifted from a more overtly reportorial stance back in 2016 to much more opinionated and openly opinionated in 2024. Listen, I love Megyn. Megyn's great. Here was Megyn endorsing President Trump yesterday.
I hope all of you do what I did last week. Vote Trump and get 10 friends to vote Trump too.
Hey, there was another endorsement yesterday that actually does matter, okay? And that was Nikki Haley. So a couple of days ago, actually, she wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal endorsing Trump. Now, there are a lot of hesitant Trump voters who kind of like Nikki Haley. They think that Nikki Haley is sort of more sober-minded version of traditional Republicanism. Of course, she won a not insignificant share of the Republican primary vote when she ran against Trump in the primaries, and then she waited for a while to sort of endorse Trump. She has an entire piece in the Wall Street Journal that is titled, "Trump Isn't Perfect, but He's the Better Choice," which, honestly, I think that's a good case for Trump. I do. I've always thought that the sort of overtly most pro-Trump case does not make the appeal to swing voters. The case that Donald Trump is the greatest, the most loyal, the best character. Like, there are a lot of people in this country who look at Donald Trump and they have doubts about him. That's fine. That's understandable. Also, you should vote for him. And that's the case that Nikki Haley is making. She says, I don't agree with Mr. Trump 100% of the time, but I do agree with him most of the time, and I disagree with Ms. Harris nearly all the time. That makes this an easy call. That seems to me the best pitch for Trump, and that's always been the best case pitch for Trump. Meanwhile, there are Kamala Harris's endorsers. So Kamala Harris's endorsers are just celebrities who went out there and sang their hearts out for Kamala. They're going to try and celebrity this thing all the way home. Now, again, if this is the kind of thing that gets people out to vote, I've yet to see tremendous evidence that celebrity endorsements get people out to vote. Hillary Clinton tried the same trash by having a bunch of celebrities sing fight song for her in 2016. Didn't work out amazing for her. It feels old, honestly. It feels kind of worn. Here is a montage of various celebrities of various ilks singing for Kamala. That is a rather weathered-looking Katy Perry, I believe. That is Ricky Martin, who was last relevant in 2002. That is ex-Tina, Christina. If this were the year 2002, this would be a serious slate of endorsements right here. And then there's this guy. Who is this guy? Do I care? Oh, it's Bon Jovi. Well, I should know Bon Jovi. Come on. Bad one, Ben. Except I don't care about rock music, so. Bon Jovi. Looking increasingly like Ruth Bader Ginsburg as he ages. Lady Gaga. Fresh from her giant failure in Joker 2. Oh, man. Man, she was better when she was in an asylum. Will.i.am? Wow, the Black Eyed Peas and Will.i.am? Again, lots of endorsers circa the Bush era. Feeling a little... Oh, I know. Are you feeling this, guys? Will.i.am. This is how fast time moves. Will.i.am is now 72 years old. So, yeah, congratulations to Kamala on all those endorsements. Meanwhile, the New York Times has its final editorial. Okay, here, this is his editorial. You already know Donald Trump. He is unfit to lead. Watch him. Listen to those who know him best. He tried to subvert an election and remains a threat to democracy. He helped overturn Roe with terrible consequences. Mr. Trump's corruption and lawlessness go beyond elections. It's his whole ethos. He lies without limit. If he's reelected, the GOP won't restrain him. Mr. Trump will use the government to go after opponents. He will pursue a cruel policy of mass deportations. He will wreak havoc on the poor, the middle class, and employers. Another Trump term will damage the climate, shatter alliances, and strengthen autocrats. Americans should demand better. Vote. Okay. Yeah, take a chill pill, people. Like, he was already president. That crap didn't happen. So, there's that. Meanwhile, I do love the historic switch that has the Democrats loving Liz Cheney. I really am enjoying this. So Liz Cheney, it's not enough for her just to be anti-Trump. She then has to go all the way. This is the part that's astonishing to me. I understand all the arguments against Trump. I do. I get it. Also, that doesn't mean you should vote for Kamala Harris. Okay, Kamala Harris is awful. She is a wildly progressive figure. Liz Cheney said in 2020 that Kamala Harris was a wildly left-wing figure. Now, Liz Cheney, because people have no capacity for cognitive dissonance. They cannot hold two thoughts at one time. Liz Cheney can't say, listen, I dislike Trump for all these reasons, but my agenda is much closer to his than it is to... Instead, she has to be out there rah-rahing for Kamala Harris, who overtly hates everything about Liz Cheney other than her support. Here's Liz Cheney pretending that she is impressed by Kamala. Listen, if you're impressed by Kamala Harris, let me suggest that you are not particularly smart. She is not an impressive person. She's just not. I spend all day dealing with impressive people. Truly. You should see my group chats. Okay, I deal with people who are worth billions of dollars. I deal with people who have 150 IQs. Kamala Harris does not even belong in the same conversation with those people. I deal with people who are like normal, everyday people who are just virtuous family people. Like, Kamala Harris is none of these things. I don't understand. Here's Liz Cheney pretending that Kamala Harris is the repository of all goodness in the universe.
I think that for all of us, I know for me, spending time with her, it's been a real chance to say, wait a second, like, we really need to take a step back and recognize that we share much more than divides us. Mm-hmm. And I just, as I said, she is somebody, when you look at her career, when you look at the extent to which she has been devoted her whole career to public service. Mm-hmm. And I'm very impressed with her.
So impressed with her. Or alternatively, is it that you have the strange new respect, Liz Cheney? Because I can guarantee you, one thing that wasn't happening before Liz Cheney backed Kamala Harris was members of The View saying that Liz Cheney should run the CIA or FBI. This is just amusing to me. This is super amusing to me. So the daughter of Dick Cheney, who agrees with virtually all of Dick Cheney's foreign policy proposals. That person is the people the Democrats are now saying should run the CIA or FBI. Like, slow clap for the Democrats and their consistency here, guys. You're not just a bunch of political whores. Wow. Solid stuff here.
I just feel like I would feel a lot better with you leading the FBI, the CIA, the NBC, the elementary.
And a big cheer from the View audience. My God, these people are dumb.
So I'm just saying, should it be floated? Please think about it.
The stupid, it burns, man. It burns. That is incredible. And Liz Cheney just lapping it all up. She didn't come to the head of the CIA or the FBI. Give me a break. Give me a break. Now, some of the very real consequences of this election are pretty dire, actually. So Elon Musk, he did a sort of closing appearance on Joe Rogan. He was talking about the censorship regime under old Twitter. Let's be real about this. If Donald Trump does not win the election today, Elon Musk will be on the chopping block by the left. They've been going after him anyway. He's been too outspoken. He must atone. Here is Elon Musk talking about freeing X of the heavy hand of Jack Dorsey.
Old Twitter was controlled by far left activists.
Yeah.
So they welcomed the government interference. And they got paid by the government for it.
That's crazy. They got paid for their time, correct?
Yeah, they got paid millions of dollars for suppressing information.
So it's like build
and
time.
And a bunch of it was like flat out illegal. Like the FBI had this sort of magic portal into the Twitter system, but all of the communication in that in this portal was auto deleted after 2 weeks, which breaks federal FOIA laws. So we don't even know what was said because it was all deleted after 2 weeks.
And so again, that is how things were run when Democrats were running it and when they had silenced Elon Musk. You think they're going to leave Musk intact? They are not. They're going to go after Elon every way they can. They already are. They already are. In fact, here was Rachel Maddow literally last night asking the federal government to target Elon Musk because he's heterodox.
Even if Trump doesn't win, the Defense Department and NASA are going to need a new arrangement for all their rockets and for all the multi-billion-dollar contracts Elon Musk's companies have with the U.S. government. The U.S. government is going to have to either, unwind from all of those contracts, or Elon Musk's companies are going to have to unwind from him. This is an untenable reality in national security terms, now that we know what we know about Elon Musk.
This is insane. This is what the world will be if Kamala Harris wins. They will go after people like Elon. By the way, Trump's going to prison if he loses. And we know this for a fact. This is a thing that will happen. So if you're on the fence and you don't want Donald Trump to go to prison, then voting might be a useful thing. According to Axios, former President Trump is scheduled to be sentenced on his 34 felony convictions 3 weeks after Election Day. Winning the election is effectively Trump's get-out-of-jail-free card. His legal team largely succeeded in delaying his criminal trials until after the election. If he wins, those prosecutions will likely be over for good. If he loses, he could find himself back in court. I mean, what a crazy circumstance. What a crazy circumstance we find ourselves in, where it's win or go to jail. Meanwhile, Democrats ramping up the rhetoric. Again, I've said it earlier, I don't like the rhetoric from either side. I love what Elon does. I think Elon's done an enormous amount of good for the country. When Elon says to Joe Rogan, this will be the last election if Trump loses, I don't think that's true. I also don't think it's true when Oprah says it. Now, notice the media will completely ignore Oprah saying it. Here was Oprah last night.
If we don't show up tomorrow, it is entirely possible that we will not have the opportunity to ever cast a ballot again.
Okay, so, I don't think that's true at all. And this sort of alarmism is not useful at all. It is also the reason why America is boarding up already. So it is all in the big cities. In the big cities, they're boarding up the stores. They're not doing that in case Kamala wins. They're doing that in case Trump wins. Let's be real. When Republicans riot, it's typically because there has been a sort of a focus point of their ire for a particular reason. It can be a bad reason, but that's typically how the riots work, right? You have to call a bunch of people to Washington, D.C., and those people have to think that if they go into the Senate, they are going to be able to stop the certification of an election. That's like how a Republican riot happens. How does a Democratic riot happen? It's a Tuesday, and people find a reason to steal a TV. And that's exactly what is going to happen if Donald Trump wins. If Donald Trump wins, that's why they're boarding up in Washington, D.C. They're not boarding up near the White House because they're deeply afraid of all of the MAGA-hatted Jussie Smollett assaulting Republicans in Washington, D.C. We know how this is going to go. That is why people are on edge in the big cities right now, is in case Trump wins. Right, that's the story. All right, coming up I want to talk about this New York Times strike. It's pretty impressive what they are striking for. These are the repositories of true journalistic virtue. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.